Good evening, everyone. We're ready to start the meeting. In compliance with Chapter 551, Open Meetings of the Texas Government Code, I call to order an information session of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Thursday, June 4th, 2026 at 7:04 p.m. A quorum of the board is physically present at Austin ISD Central Office to conduct this meeting. We generally broadcast our meetings in many different ways: AISD TV, Facebook Live, on Spectrum and other ways. We just had 15 phenomenal graduations with a lot of technology supporting that, including live streaming all over the world for families who couldn't be here in person. And some of our technology has not been reset up yet. So I want to let people know that we are not going to have a broadcast with closed captioning tonight on Austin ISD TV. People can see the meeting on Facebook Live with captions. So people can see it on Facebook Live with captions tonight, on cable channel 22 through Spectrum and Sound Broadband, on channel 99 through AT&T Uverse, and then it will also be on Facebook. We'll post it on our YouTube channel later. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Trustee Boswell, I'd like to take a point of personal privilege.
Yes, please. And we'll come to public comment next after this.
So last night after our Austin High School graduation, Chief Wayne Sneed, our chief of Austin ISD, the police department, was injured in a motorcycle accident while on duty. And this was coming from a really joyful occasion where our superintendent's daughter graduated and he was on his way to celebrate her. And I know that he didn't get much sleep last night. Chief Sneed is on the road to recovery, but it's going to be a long road. And on behalf of the Austin ISD family, to Chief Sneed and his family, we're all praying for a speedy recovery. We're with you and we love you. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Trustee Whitley-Chu. Thank you. All right, so next up is an opportunity for the public to share comments with the board. This time allows speakers to comment publicly on any topic of their choosing directly to the school board. We have time for up to 60 speakers. The district continues to provide time during the regular voting meetings of the board to hear from the public about agenda items for consideration and vote. Members of the public wishing to participate in the public comment portion of our meeting called a dedicated Austin ISD phone line in advance of the meeting to sign up to speak in person or to audio record their remarks. This is an opportunity for the board to take part in listening to our community. While we wish we could respond to each topic raised, the Texas Open Meetings Act does not authorize a board to engage in deliberation or take action on comments or complaints from members of the public for any subject not on the meeting agenda. For comments related to posted agenda items, we will engage in any deliberations or ask follow-up questions during the presentation of that item on our agenda. Tonight, we have 30 people who signed up to speak in person. We have 30 who left a recorded message. And we'll begin with our in-person public comment. Thank you all for being with us to provide as many opportunities for input as possible within a limited time period at our meeting. Oh, no. We're going to pause the meeting. Can we pause the broadcast for a moment, please?
Okay. Trustee Boswell moved to
we're going to adjourn the meeting for a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 7:07 p.m.
Sorry, recess.
Welcome back, everybody. We will now reconvene our meeting at 7:13 p.m. Thank you all, and the person is getting the help they need, so thank you. I will go back to the instructions. We will move to in-person public comment in order to provide as many opportunities for input as possible within a limited time period at this meeting. Each speaker will be allotted 1 minute. No substitutions or yielding of time to others is permitted. Callers who signed up to speak in person will be invited to come to the microphone when your name is called. And as you come to the microphone, please press the button to turn it on. When the buzzer sounds, please make a final thought in 1 sentence. And whether you come to give a complaint or praise, please reference any staff member by position or abbreviated last name. We ask that all audience members, whether speaking or not, please show respect for all others at all times. And we'll start with our first 4 in-person speakers: Neil Hall, Trey Thomas, Gabriela Garcia, and Caitlin Westerberg. When you're ready, and we'll let you know if the microphone's on. Sometimes it's tricky.
Hello, board members. I'm here to ask that you include Blackshear Elementary in the upcoming boundary discussions. East Austin should be looked at holistically. The board can vote to close Blackshear later if that's what holistic analysis and democratic process reveals is best. We'll be at peace with that decision, any decision that results from that process. Right now, it's challenging to find peace. The path we've been down feels convoluted and arbitrary. It feels like two historic East Austin schools were singled out from the pack, reduced to an either-or, and in the end, one person deciding. Board members, include Blackshear in the upcoming boundary discussions. It costs you very little. You keep all options open, and you'll earn East Austin's confidence in your process.
Good evening. I'm the parent of an AISD first grader. I strongly urge the board to maintain full-time library positions at all schools and take a stand to protect literacy and cultures of reading. On May 5th, AISD announced that it would not propose eliminating librarian or counselor positions. Unfortunately, this promise was broken by the district's plan to eliminate 11.5 library positions through half-time conversion at 23 schools. This proposal will cause long-term harm and magnify inequities across our campuses. It is not consistent with the values of our Austin community. Using causal methods, research shows that students with full-time certified librarians do better on math and reading tests. This is no surprise, since librarians cultivate student motivation to read, explore new subjects, develop background knowledge, and engage in critical thinking. Librarians also support teachers with new texts and methods for incorporating literacy in their classrooms. The proposed low savings, high impact cuts to librarian positions are not evidence-based. They will limit student access, opportunity, and programming at schools that need it most. The board must intervene to stop them now. Thank you.
My name is Gabby Garcia. For the past 2 years, I've worked as a library media associate at McBee Elementary, one of the impacted campuses. Reducing library hours or splitting them across campuses may save money, but it comes at a high cost. Running a school library with only one librarian is already a colossal task. It leaves little to no room for curriculum development, programming, author visits, and many other things. Schools forced into this model will have deficient library programs, which will directly harm students, staff, and educational outcomes. This essentially means that Friday was my last day, as I cannot afford to work part-time. Besides the uncertainty about my finances or work prospects, what haunts me most is that I didn't have the chance to say goodbye to my students. I know that AISD and the board are under tremendous pressure, and that the root of the deficits lies with the state. At my core, I support public schools, and I want to be able to say that I support AISD, but you can imagine how difficult that is when it treats its staff with such disregard. It's my understanding that the board has not yet voted on this change, and I urge you to honor the original assurances that were made to this community.
Hi, my name is Caitlin. I live on East 13th Street, and I'm here to talk about Blackshear Elementary. First, I want to say thank you to everyone in this room who's worked really hard on the budget. I can only imagine how challenging that is. Thank you for your guys' time and sacrifice. Regarding Blackshear, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot. Let's slow down, keep Blackshear in the boundary discussion. Let's get creative. Let's give two East Austin neighborhoods two schools that they deserve. The kids there deserve our extra consideration and a proper process for us to come to that type of decision. The very children that the board works so hard to protect and serves deserve physical connection to the historic community that thrived there before them. They deserve to walk the same halls as the children who later became school board of trustees, community college administrators, college presidents. For children, the building matters. It's more salient than a plaque. They deserve that, and then you can be proud that you protected culture and history rather than unintentionally erasing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speakers are Minda Anderson, Angelique Gonzalez Page. We have a Christina. We have two Christinas signed up. This is the Christina that did not give your last name and who is not Christina Round, if that helps you know which Christina it is. And then the next speaker is Rachel Bowden. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Minda Anderson. I'm an Austin ISD graduate and loyal employee of 15 years. A few years ago, my sister was teaching art at a public middle school in North Texas, and I had the chance to visit her. What shocked me was the state of their school library. The doors were locked, the lights were off, there was no access for students or staff. The district had recently cut funding for librarian positions. There were no book clubs happening, no campus-wide reading programs, no instructional support for staff, no digital literacy lessons being taught. And for me, the worst part was there were windows in the library from the hallway, so students could walk past the library, look into the windows, could see the books, but they couldn't read them. Now here in Austin, if the board votes to approve the budget cuts as proposed, 23 campus libraries will also be closed to their communities 2 to 3 days a week. My fear is that this is just the beginning. My hope is that it is just temporary. Please keep full-time certified librarians at every campus. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angela Gonzalez-Page, and my children go to Boone Elementary in South Austin. I'm a parent volunteer at my children's library for the past 2 years. As I know that a $181 billion deficit looms over our head, our district has to make deep cuts. But I implore you that you think about keeping as many of our staff that support our kids, like teachers, music, art, PE, the SPED department, and most importantly, our librarians. Staff and parents were notified on the last day that our librarian, Miss Sunny, would be going halftime at our school, since our enrollment is less than 400 students at our school. There is no guarantee of any job available for our librarian. The timing could have been better, and I have a lot of big feelings about that. I see joy and wonder she brings to our kids. They sit and they learn all day, and being in the library offers them unstructured reading time, focusing on what they want to read. I have been told by many parents that their kids love the library, and importantly, Miss Sunny. I'm amazed at the stamina and the many roles she has supporting our school. In addition to being the school librarian, she's the go-to person for laptops, and she's just overall an amazing person. We'd like to keep her. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Bowden, and I want to start by applauding our Austin community, who wrote over 200 comments this week urging the state legislature to increase the basic allotment. I also want to thank the board and AISD staff for their thoughtful work on the budget. However, the issue I'd like to focus on is its boundaries. At the May 11th kickoff meeting, I was dismayed to see that Blackshear had already been erased from the map. I'll remind the board that Blackshear is a historic institution with a well-maintained campus and space for around 450 students, big enough to operate efficiently and sustain a full-time librarian, while the new Oak Springs campus is too small. As a successful Title I school in the heart of East Austin, near Keeling, Carver Library, and Houston Tillotson, Blackshear is an asset to the district and deserves to be considered as we evaluate Eastside boundaries and consider creative solutions, like non-zoned campuses, to save our schools and keep families in the district. I urge you to put Blackshear back on the boundary map and not close our school without a vote. If AISD can save Maplewood and Briker Woods, they can also save Blackshear.
Thank you. And is Christina here? Okay, if Christina comes, we'll call for Christina at the end as well. Next speakers are LaShonda, Heather Hughes, Marcus Charles, and Emily. Okay, LaShonda, Heather Hughes, Marcus Charles, and Emily. And if LaShonda isn't here, we can go to the next person, who's Heather. Okay, is Heather Hughes here? Awesome. Heather, you're up, and we'll come back to LaShonda. Thank you.
Hello. I am a full-time certified librarian here in Austin, or I was. I was the librarian at Langford Elementary, one of the 23 schools facing the district's proposal to cut librarians to half-time, or many of them. This is my 13th year in education, and I'm proud to be Langford's librarian. When I joined in the 24-25 school year, the school had had 3 consecutive F ratings from TEA. Together, we earned a C, and this year, double-digit MAP growth. Langford is in the middle of a real transformation, and a full-time certified librarian is part of what's driving it. I've co-designed lessons with teachers, led PD, hosted best-selling authors, and built a culture of reading that is just beginning to take off. I know what nearly every child at Langford likes to read, and it shows. Our leopards are trying new genres, reading more books, and taking pride in their growth. Cutting my position to half-time makes the district's expectation of comparable levels of access and activities unrealistic, especially as we prepare to move into our fully modernized campus next year. Austin ISD made a public commitment to not cut librarians, and I urge the board to hold them to it. Thank you.
Do I have to press something? No. Okay, all right. Good evening. My name is Marcus Charles, and I'm the father of a student at Blackshear Elementary School. I find it hard to understand that the district could consider closing a school with 135 years of history because of budget concerns. Blackshear is more than a building. It is a cornerstone of East Austin, of all of Austin, and a living part of the city's history. My family and I moved here from Montgomery County, Maryland, a great school district, and enrolled our son in Blackshear because we believe in the public education system. We've only been at Blackshear for 1 year, but in that short amount of time, it's become very important. It's become a very important part of our family. Austin is a diverse city in some parts, but is still predominantly white. And at Blackshear, my son sees children who look like him. He sees teachers and staff who look like him. He sees a school community that reflects the diversity of the real world, which helps him understand where he belongs in it. And that matters to not only my son, but many other children as well. If AISD is concerned with the declining enrollment, please listen to the families who are still here, listen to the parents, the teachers, and the administrators who invest their time in the schools each and every day. Thank you.
Yes, Trustee Kaufman has a point of order. 1 moment.
I just want to ask, out of respect for our speakers, I'd ask that those people who are holding signs to just continue holding them still while the speakers are going so that it doesn't distract from their message during their time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have Emily here? Okay, our next in-person speakers are Eric Ramos, Markel, Lyric, and Brianna.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Eric Ramos, and there's a few things that don't sit right with me with the most recent edition of what we've seen. I'll see how many I can get through today. First one is these in general. I had to know to look at my email at 9:10 p.m. on a Tuesday night, read through it, notice there was a hyperlink, then scroll all the way to the bottom to realize there was not 1 but 2 attachments just to even look at this. Then once I find it, I start looking at the details, and it feels like some departments took the cut a lot worse than the others, and I feel like it should have been spread a lot more equally. I don't feel that it's fair for certain departments to take much deeper cuts than others. This is a really bad situation we're in, and we're going to get through it together, not with some taking a bigger burden than the rest. Finally, I'd like to know, with us closing 11 schools and having who knows how many less students next year, how many less positions do we have that are at the executive director and up compared to the years before? If everyone else is getting cut, once again, we need everyone to help share this burden. It is not a small burden. Thank you.
When you're ready. Does she touch the button? Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lyric, and I'm speaking for Pleasant Hill Elementary School. CIS has helped me and my family for many years. My CIS teacher has built up my confidence and helped me with my grades and supported me through my extracurriculars throughout the years. I've been so proud of my CIS teacher because she has built me of the way I am. And I've been super proud of myself and my CIS teacher for being there with me. To end my speech, if you took away CIS, you'd be taking away an extra help for other students to be successful like me. For example, my little brother, he's in 1st grade, and I started CIS in 2nd grade. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Lyric. Our next speaker is Brianna.
We switched up. My name's Markel. I was before
Oh, you're Markel.
Lyric.
Perfect.
I'm her mother.
Thank you. Welcome, Markel.
So
Thank
yes,
you.
this is my daughter, Lyric. Everybody had speeches. Most I had was good evening. My name is Markel. I'm the mother of 2 of 3 children that was a part of the CIS school. So they started off in elementary. They're now at Crockett High School, AP honor rolls, gifted and talented, going to early childhood or early college. So as she did mention, she started this off in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, continue on to this point. We do have, I guess you'd say, evidence of showing that how community schools really helped out. Not being statistic of a single parent or anything like that, but just like everybody else, y'all were told something, not guaranteed it. So now I didn't prepare a speech because I wasn't prepared for this product or this services to be taken care of or taken underneath our foot. So at the end of the day, yes, it's changed me. Yes, it's changed my kids' lives. Successful, some of us are statistics. We may have one parent, whether it's during the loss or bear the loss of a parent, but at the end of the day, ISD, CIS has helped me and my family tremendously. And if y'all take it away, like my daughter said, y'all are taking away an advantage of a help for somebody in the future that was in her position and now can be a successor for what they show for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Brianna. Do we have Brianna here? Okay. Next up is Demetrius and Rochelle, Trinity, and Sunny Steyer. Thank you. Do we have Demetrius, Rochelle, Trinity? Okay, and I think I saw Sunny somewhere. Okay, you're up next. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sunny from Boone Elementary School. I want to thank the board for consistently asking for more information before making decisions, even when the district seems to be making them without you. I gave 2 documents to you. You may not have them now, but they are executive or organizational charts. They're flow charts from the superintendent to above the principals. And in 2016, it showed 68 positions. In 2023, 119. So 51 positions were added, while in the last 10 years, we lost 14,000 students. That incongruency begs me to ask you to please examine those positions. We've been told the district is using a fine-tooth comb to reduce costs. Maybe that fine-tooth comb needs to go to the roots again. What matters most is the students who directly are impacted on a daily basis by people like me. We're here for students, we're here for literacy, and we're here for librarians full-time. I have faith you will make the right decision.
President Boswell. Sunny, to whom did you give the documents? Our executive assistant?
Sent them through the trustees email.
Okay.
I sent them also to Ms. Boswell.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Marcel Ruelas, Megan Kale, Edgar, and Tiffany. Hi.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes,
I
thank
seem
you.
to be the only one. Good evening. My name is Tiffany. I'm a single parent. And as a single parent, I understand the challenges of work balance, family responsibilities, and making our own, and making our children have the support that they need to be successful in school. That's why the organizations like Communities in School are so important. They provide students and families with resources, guidance, and encouragement when life is difficult. Their support helps remove barriers that can stand in the child's way of education and further future success. As a single mom, I understand the value of having a community that cares. No parent should have to face these challenges alone, and no child should have to be left without the opportunity to reach their full potential. I am grateful for the work that Communities in School does with Norman Sims Elementary and the positive impact that it has on the students and families. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Megan Kale, and I currently work at Langford Elementary in South Austin. I've been there 4 years as the music teacher, and I am now proud to say that we are growing in such an amazing way, and I'm so grateful to get to see it. As my librarian mentioned earlier, we went from an F campus for 3 years all the way up to a C in 1 year. That is only possible through the work we're doing as teachers, through the work we're doing as librarians, as staff. Our CIS is also is possible to be lost. I know that they are not able to run our school without all of this support. Our parent support specialist, our CIS, our counselors, our librarian, all of these people are essential areas. All of these people are what make our school run and what make our school go from an F to a C. And we are on track to continue to see that growth, but we cannot do that without our teachers and our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Marcel or Edgar here? If not, we'll move on. All right. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Hello.
Hi, my name is Edgar Morales. I'd like to speak on how I've been impacted by communities in school. I just graduated from Aikens High School, and I'm now headed to Texas State in the fall, where I'll be the first person in my family to attend college. Growing up in an immigrant household, I learned the value of making every second count. My parents are some of the most determined people I know, determined to navigate this country as immigrants, determined to grow their business, determined to provide a better life for my sister and I. Despite the things that we disagree with each other, I still know all these moments come from a place of love. As I embark on my college career, I would like to remember what it took for me to get here. CS has shown me the kind of care, kindness, and commitment to helping others grow and feel acknowledged. They tell me how much relationships matter and that people together are stronger. They help me prepare for college, and yes, they also gave me assurance that things will be okay. Be okay as long as there are people and organizations are around to shape that possibility. Thank you.
Edgar, thank you, and congratulations on your graduation and on heading to Texas State. Yeah, you said that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we have a few more. Christina Round, Paola, David Round, Victoria, Kimberly McLaren, and Cecilia.
All right, be patient with me. My water bottle broke, and so my speech is a wee bit watered down. So We're gonna do my best here. Okay. Good evening. My name is Christina Round. Professionally, I manage accounting departments for luxury home builders. Personally, I'm a strong supporter for my boys' passions. Since 2022, I have held the fundraising chair for the band board at Murchison Middle School. With my oversight, donations increased by 700% in our first year. 700%. I have also been on the field as a volunteer every single Saturday for my son's Pop Warner football games, which feeds directly into ISD, and will be volunteering for the MMS Athletic Board starting next fall. Having a financial background, I understand the importance of budget demands. The key is looking at the budget analytically and having the insight to project what's best for the health of AISD in the future. Both of my boys have been highly active in sports, band, orchestra, art, theater since we moved to Austin. Having the opportunity for them to select programs early on that feed directly into their high school track is so fundamentally important. Reducing fine arts, counseling services, technology, and shifting on-campus security is shocking. This is a recipe for a tragedy in AISD's future. Thank you for listening to me, and I implore you to do better. Sports, band, fine arts. And shout out for water polo.
I just want to set that like on purpose. Okay, so green means good. Green means go. Okay, so I am new to the Austin School District. We moved here probably about 3 months ago. I have 2 children in the AISD school district. I'm a single parent, not by choice. I don't want to talk about that, but it was a very high profile case when my daughter's dad passed away. But I want to talk about me being a certified accountant, and I think about the offset to the $181 million, and I think about nonprofit work, and I think about how I work for the government as well, too. And then I'm also in music, and I have my own promotion company and marketing, and we can offset the $181 million deficit by donating to nonprofits and different groups of here all across, and to keep everyone afloat. And it also is a tax write-off, so I deal with that part. I think about that, and I think about giving kids a chance that have been taught that work is more important than education. So I try to remind them that education still is just as important, and you can get more money when you get more education. I came here for CIS as well. I saw her faint, so water polo. You know, I went to McCallum Knights before, so that kind of touched my heart too as a parent. 2 of my kids are there. My daughter was superintendent student leadership council for 2020 when COVID hit. She's a superstar. She's TikTok famous. I'm Facebook famous. It doesn't matter, because at the end, there's so much going wrong. My son is on the autism spectrum, so I'm kind of used to both sides of the world. And I do know to offset that deficit, we can easily give back somehow. I also did market research for TEA, so if y'all need help I love numbers, then we can just think about it like that. And I don't know how much time I have left, but we can make that 181 come right back.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Sorry, ma'am, what was your name? Ma'am, what was your name?
Yeah, ma'am.
Speaker,
Ma'am?
what was your name?
Victoria, thank you. I want to be sure we know who to call at the end. Thank you. So do we have Paola, David, Kimberly, or Cecilia here?
Cecilia.
Okay.
David.
David. We'll take David, then Cecilia, and then whoever is behind.
Hi, my name is David Round. I have 2 kids in AISD. They both graduated from DOS. One of them is currently in Murchison, and his older brother is in Anderson. They have both been a part of the Murchison band. The older one is now currently in the Anderson Orchestra. And one of the reasons that we chose to be in this pipeline is because of the attractiveness of the programs that are being run in this pipeline. We obviously could have gone anywhere, but we chose this track in particular because of how the quality of the programs that they provide. Now, one thing that I don't want to see is cuts to these programs because they are attractive, and a lot of funding is based off of the number of students that we have enrolled. Is that correct? Okay. And so, but not for these programs, we wouldn't be butts in the seats on that one. Thank you.
Hello? Ready? Yes. Okay. Good evening. My name is Cecilia Rivera. I'm a parent at Cook Elementary. I'm here today as a proud parent of a student who has been supported by communities in school of Central Texas. This year, our CIS program manager has helped our family in ways that are difficult to say. As a parent, I have seen firsthand how my child has benefited for CIS support, especially in learning how to navigate and manage his emotion. Our families have experienced a very difficult loss due to my husband's immigration situation. During this challenge time, CIS was there for us. They provide support not only for our family, but also to my son at school when he was struggling with strong emotions and challenges that has come with his life. Changing experience that care, guidance, and encouragement provide through CIS have made a meaningful difference in my child's well-being and successful at school. I ask you to continue investing in communities in school of Central Texas. The support they provide changes lives, and my family is living proof of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have Kimberly or Paola here? Oh, thank you. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, good evening. Kimberly McLaren, 13-year AISD parent with a 2025 LASA graduate and a LASA 10th grader, both water polo players. Water polo is the sole sport being significantly impacted by the proposed cuts, despite being a sport that truly embodies the spirit of Title IX. Girls and boys teams share coaches, practice space, attend tournaments together, cheering one another on. There's a dedicated booster community already funding travel, meals, uniforms, equipment, and training for coaches. You can see all the support here for water polo from Austin ISD and our neighboring districts, and your decision impacts them too. You have heartbreaking choices to make, but the cuts must be shared and equitable. Singling out a program with a strong community base, zero facility overhead, gender parity, and minimal cost doesn't make sense. Boosters are committed to increasing support, but we can't remain a UIL sport without district support. A small and equitable reduction in all athletic budgets would easily cover costs to maintain polo. We're asking you to meet us partway to keep these kids achieving in and out of the pool.
Thank you all. I'm going to run through the in-person names one more time before we go to the recorded messages in case someone has come in. We have Christina, LaShonda, Emily, Brianna, Demetrius, Rochelle, Trinity, Marcel, Paola. Any of those people here? Oh, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you. If I called anyone's name, please walk to the podium. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I'm kind of short, y'all, so. Hello, my name is LaShonda White. I am a proud parent of Cooks Elementary. We are a part of the CIS program. It has helped us in many ways, emotional, mental, and health. I know that if me and my family benefit from it, I know it can help other people too. We have experienced financial strain and others as they helped other families. My daughter was going through something, and it was very emotional where she wanted to harm herself. So that's when I was introduced to CIS, and it helped her in so many ways. It helped her to love herself. It helped her to become a better person with her emotions and everything. I was reaching out to like Carousel, to her farm, or her doctors and everything. So you have to have referrals, you have to go through this, you have to go through that. But when I was introduced to CIS, they attacked those things that she was going through immediately. So with that being said, I really hope that you can keep the program going. Thank you.
Thank you, LaShonda, and thank you to all of our in-person speakers. We'll now play our recorded messages for public comment. So please listen carefully. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Seb White, and I'm a speech-language pathologist at Doss Elementary. As you hear the proposed budget tonight, I ask that you consider one question. What do these cuts mean for our special education students and the staff who support them every day? The proposed bilingual and special education stipend reductions are not cuts to optional bonuses. These stipends are built into our biweekly compensation and inform our financial decisions about where we can afford to live, what groceries or childcare we can pay for, and whether we can afford to remain working in AISD. What concerns me is that many frontline educators are being asked to take significant pay cuts while continuing the same work, carrying the same caseloads, and maintaining the same compliance standards that just recently got us out of TEA corrective action. Before approving these reductions, I hope the board considers, do we want to retain our special education and bilingual staff, or do we want a revolving door that leads to instability for students and serious risks for the district? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Davis. I'm a parent of students at Keeling and Blackshear, with another one scheduled to be at Blackshear in a couple of years. Blackshear is the only school slated to close without a school board vote. The process that led to its closure was unjust, and it improperly pitted two Title I schools against each other. Closing Blackshear would erase a 135-year-old institution on the east side. I urge the board to intervene and look more closely on how we're spending more money to build a new Oak Springs that's too small for the new combined community. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Jacqueline Collier. I'm an educator, a special needs provider, and a parent of 3 children who have participated in Austin ISD Fine Arts programs. My oldest daughter spent 7 years in the fine arts programs at Lamar and McCallum and is now an honors student at UT Austin. My younger children chose to enroll in Austin ISD specifically because of its outstanding orchestra programs and dedicated educators. Fine arts has given my children confidence, belonging, discipline, and a reason to want to come to school every day. As a parent volunteer, I have watched students from all backgrounds work together, achieve excellence, and develop into collaborators, leaders, and problem solving. I understand Austin ISD faces serious financial challenges. However, enrollment drives revenue, and fine arts programs are one of the reasons families choose to stay in Austin ISD. I respectfully ask the board to restore fine arts oversight and ensure these decisions are guided by art education specialists. Fine arts is not an extra. It is an investment in our students, our enrollment, and our future. Thank you.
My name is Lenny King, and I've been a parent at Blackshear Elementary since 2019. Your decision to close Blackshear Elementary is premature. Please include Blackshear in the upcoming boundary discussions. Every single East Austin elementary school within a 3-mile radius of Blackshear, including Campbell, Go Valley, Oak Springs, Ortega, Sanchez, and Zavala, are all severely under-enrolled. Closing Blackshear does not address the overall under-enrollment problem in East Austin. We should be working to attract students to East Austin. Blackshear is the highest performing elementary school in East Austin, is the only fine arts academy at the elementary level, and has a strong legacy, 135 years to be exact. The school board never voted to close Blackshear. We deserve to be part of the boundary discussion.
Hi, my name is Gabe Hernandez, and I am a parent of a Blackshear Elementary School student. I was really disheartened to see that in the recent boundary meeting, the school was no longer referred to as Blackshear Elementary School. It was referred to as Oak Springs Elementary School. Blackshear was not voted to be closed. Oak Springs was. And so my ask is really simple. It's to reconsider Blackshear Elementary School in part of the boundary conversations. We were the only school that was effectively closing that was not voted on by the board, and we would like for this issue to come to the board and have an official vote. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexia Haywood. I'm one of the 23 librarians that found out on the last day of school for kids that my job would be part-time next year. Even though the district had told us and had publicly announced that they would not propose cuts to librarians and counselors for the next school year, I wanted to respond to the statement that I saw from the district on Friday about how they were assuring everyone that they had faith that all of our students would still have comparable access to library services and programs. I don't know how you can say that that's going to be the case. A part-time person just cannot do the job of a full-time person. Every librarian I know is a miracle worker and does so many things, wears so many hats around school, but when it comes down to it, something is going to have to give. I don't know how you have We're into author visits and special events and book clubs and.
Hello, my name is Tara Bowman. I'm a librarian for Austin ISD. I also have 2 current students and 1 recent graduate. I was calling about the budget, most specifically the newest information that 23 librarians would only be allotted a 0.5 librarian position on their campus. This was obviously after the district had stated that librarians and counselor positions would not be affected in that way. I think that it feels a little sneaky the way that things were done. I am not one of the librarians whose campus is affected, but I think it's very important that we recognize that the way that the district has rolled this out and the way that the information was presented feels a little, I don't like it. I don't like that way of treating people, and I wanted to say, please don't do this. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephen Brown. I am a lifelong resident of East Austin. I'm born and raised. I've gone through AISD schooling, and I just wanted to call and voice my support in Blackshear remaining open. I think Oak Springs should continue to be built, but I think that we should find some way to keep Blackshear open, given the history and what Blackshear means to the African American community and what it means to me and other elders who have taught there. I think it's vital and critical that it remains open. We know from history, we know when AISD closed Ode Anderson, or when Ode Anderson was closed, that really started the erosion of the community, and the Black community really suffered tremendously from that. I know that things have changed, and AISD dynamics are different, but the erosion of community can be prevented by keeping Blackshear open and also continuing to work on Oak Springs. I think Oak Springs should stay open, and Black.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Gaylor, and I am a parent of a middle schooler in AISD schools, and I'm calling with my enthusiastic support for the fine arts programs throughout AISD, especially the orchestra programming. Orchestra has made a huge difference in the life of my student, and I really encourage the trustees to protect that programming throughout the district. It's simply unavailable to us in our home district because we are out-of-district transfers who came to AISD for these opportunities, and we implore the trustees to please preserve this opportunity for our students, for all of AISD students, and the growth that it offers them, and how meaningful it is in their lives, and the motivation it gives these students to return to school every single day. Thank you so much for your time.
My name is Tabitha Love, and I believe that Blackshear should stay open. I went to school at Blackshear when I was a little girl. I'm now 40 years old, so it was a long time ago. It was so beautiful being able to grow up on East 9th Street, and as a little girl, I would walk to school with my grandfather. It's also a beautiful thing that Blackshear is right next to a historical college, so those young kids can see people go into college and just see what their future can be. We need to keep stuff like that alive here in Austin, and I hope and pray that y'all can fight and do what we need to do to keep Blackshear open.
Hi, my name is Patrick Davis. I'm a parent of children at Keeling and Blackshear. We've been very fortunate to be able to walk to school every day for the last few years. I'm calling to remind the board that it never voted to close Blackshear, unlike every other school on the closure list. The process that the superintendent used to determine Blackshear's fate was not fair, nor was it transparent, despite what the superintendent has communicated to the public. Blackshear's history and relevance to the East Side is far too important to simply brush under the rug, and I ask that the board reevaluate Blackshear's status with the wider boundary discussions. And since the topic of the day is budgets, why are we not being more creative with how we're reallocating the 2022 bond money? Why are we building a new school that's going to be too small for a combined Oak Springs and Blackshear campus? It makes no financial sense, and it makes me really wonder if the superintendent is qualified to be leading the organization. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mrs. Myers, retired AISD teacher and now a library volunteer at McBee Elementary. My concern is AISD's plan to cut library positions to part-time in 23 schools, including McBee, next year. As a teacher and library volunteer, I witness daily all the important duties of Miss G as a full-time librarian. She teaches literacy skills to 6 classes a day, catalogs new books, shelves books that are returned, creating reading incentive programs, and booking authors' visits. As a full-time librarian, she welcomes volunteer support to get all these tasks done. I cannot imagine running a library well in only 4 hours a day. Student literacy will be negatively impacted. Please, please do not cut library funding. Honor your commitment to not make cuts to school libraries. Thank you for protecting our libraries and our librarians.
Hi, my name is Laura DeBlane. I'm a current Blackshear parent, and I'm calling regarding the planned closure of Blackshear Elementary School. At a time when AISD is facing enrollment decline, turmoil from the partially implemented consolidation plan, and currently has the most failing schools of any district in Texas, AISD cannot afford to close Blackshear, one of the few schools in our area that is meeting state accountability. AISD can also not afford to end this historic campus's legacy halfway through an academic year. This proposal is further alienating families from the district. From the consolidation process over the last year, the only decision driven by AISD leadership and not by TEA-related requirements is the closure of Blackshear. There is no TAP or dual language-related state guidance catalyzing this closure decision. AISD invested in Blackshear with bonds and specialized programming, which has helped to continue Blackshear's legacy. And now the only AISD-driven decision out of consolidation undermines all of this prior investment and leaves students with fewer non-failing schools. Boundary discussions can't continue without considering accountability ratings. Blackshear needs to be included.
Hi, my name is Amber Bonadono, and I'm the parent of 2 students at McCallum High School who are majors in the dance pre-professional program. This program and other dance programs throughout AISD are vital for the success of our students. Both of my students my children also completed the dance major program at Lamar Middle School as well. My eldest graduated on Friday from McCallum Fine Arts Academy and was able to transfer to a professional ballet company as a trainee. This is exceptionally rare. Trainee positions are usually reserved for students who have already completed a dance program in college. And my eldest student was able to be accepted not just into 1, but into 3 company traineeships throughout the United States after only completing the program at McCallum High School. I think that a lot of the arts are viewed as extracurricular, but they are vital for my family. Thank you for your time.
My name is Carolyn Foote. I'm a taxpayer, and I'm on the Campus Advisory Council for Joslyn Elementary. I'm calling in regards to the proposed librarian cuts at the elementaries to half-time positions. I'm a former librarian and also a parent, so I know the impact that libraries have on their campuses as the heart of the school. When a library is closed half the week, students don't have access, librarians can't plan activities like book fairs and reading contests or weekly reading activities, and it's harm to the literacy of the whole campus. The students at many of these schools don't have books in their homes, and getting them excited about reading is an important part of improving their reading scores. Please do not eliminate full-time library.
Hi, my name is Deborah Squires, and I'm a parent of students at Austin High and Keeling Middle School. And I'm calling to ask you to reconsider cutting water polo from the budget for next year. AISD water polo players are consistently among the highest performing student athletes in the classroom. They have high daily attendance, and that's valuable with funding at $7,000 per student. Nearby districts and private schools have high visibility water polo pipelines that will allow students to continue playing. My older son is the captain of the Austin High water polo team. He'll be a senior this year, and he'll be devastated if his program is cut. But his younger brother is also in that pipeline and definitely will not attend Austin ISD schools if he loses his chance to play water polo here. So This is a cut that would be resounding for years to come, and at $89,000, it's not a huge cut. Less than 15 students would have to leave the district for this reason to make that money savings completely obsolete. So I'm asking you, please save this program.
With Meg Karevi, Blackshear parent, Blackshear should be part of the boundary discussion process. It's the oldest school in Austin with 135 years of history. The kids take pride in that history. Its fate, its future must be part of a democratic community process voted on by the board, not a shady loophole thrown in last minute on the plan voted on November 21st. This clause that said maybe we'll move the school, maybe not. In the TAP plan submitted to TEA, AISD said with the consolidation of multiple campuses, the district will strategically invest in the receiving school, Blackshear, its facilities and academic program staff. You promised to minimize disruptions for students. Moving the mid-year is the opposite of that. And any changes made to the TAP must be submitted to TEA. Has that been done? East Austin should be looked at holistically in the boundary discussion process. The decision should not be made by one man. A superintendent with very close ties to the construction industry. Has he prioritized business relationships over sound financial decisions in this process? It's also very concerning the process happened while Rosewood Courts was closed. The members of this community have not been heard, and if you allow the superintendent to make this decision now, they won't be heard at all.
Hello, the name is Lee. I'd like to voice my support for the water polo programs in the school district. It has been an invaluable sport and learning opportunity for my kids. Has enhanced their experience in the district, and without the program, I think they would seriously consider going to other schools and other districts. That would be a real possibility. Please, please save water polo.
Hi, my name is Jason Wilson. I'm an Austin resident and supporter of AISD's water polo program. I think Coach S has been doing a fantastic job. The program is amazing, and it would be a shame for the program to be dropped. The students that play water polo are really strong students. They have great attendance, and if they aren't allowed to play in Austin, I'm sure, or it's my opinion, that they may find other locations to play and leave the district altogether. So please support Austin water polo. Thank you.
My name is Greg LaMontagne. I live in Austin, in the Joslin School neighborhood, and I'm calling about the proposed cuts to library staff. First of all, I think it's poor form to have publicly stated that no cuts would be made, and then stating that you're going to make cuts on basically the last day of school. I think that's terrible. Second of all, I think it is a move in the wrong direction. If you want to improve reading scores, if you want to do the fundamental things to make your school's test better rather than worse, this is the wrong way to go. Make a cut somewhere else that's not a library. A library is essential to a school's functioning. You all may just think that they're warehouses for books, but they're not. They work with language arts. They work with students. They improve reading scores. They teach kids to love and to learn how to read. Thanks.
I'm calling in support of librarians in every public school at the elementary level in particular. That is for high-performing schools and low-performing schools. Every child deserves access to a library with a librarian that can help inspire a love of reading and inspire literacy. Low-performing schools, I know that there is an issue there and they need the additional support, but high-performing schools need it too. The library is the only place in school where children are allowed to read for pleasure, where they're inspired to read because reading is how they are going to learn and have a love of learning. If we lose that, we are going to become a community that does not support our values. And I know we are losing students. I know we are in a hard place, but more students are going to leave because we are not supplying them with the type of education that their parents require, which is based on arts and librarians. And our library staff are not just folks who shelve books. They are folks who create safe spaces for our students, inspire a love of reading, and help us meet our.
Hi, I'm a parent for Austin High kids. I've had 3 kids go through. I have 1 recent graduate and a junior. I want to speak to water polo and possible orchestra cuts. The water polo program is gaining serious momentum. We've produced 2 Division I NCAA graduates in the 2 year, and now attract social media follows from Italian clubs and from West Coast coaches. The team is training now for next season. As I record these remarks, they are at Austin High School doing a lift session. These are very dedicated student athletes who have worked very hard to build this program. Cutting it now would erase years of progress. The orchestra program is equally vital. It's a consistent UIL tournament contender and has sent musicians to the collegiate level. Miss Solis's leadership has been extraordinary. Losing either program would set us back for years, maybe a decade. Please don't reset what these students and teachers have built. The momentum is finally here.
Hi, my name is Amanda Venkatrao. I have a student at Highland Park Elementary, and I'm calling in regards to the librarian cuts. I am pro a librarian at each campus, if at all possible. I've volunteered and watched firsthand the number of kids who come in there looking for specific things, who come in there at odd hours, not just their library times. Sometimes that's their real only opportunity to browse and have the space to explore things they're interested in, which is a keystone of learning, is trying to find something kids are interested in. I am a proponent of having someone there at all times, not just an aide, not just volunteers, but a librarian who's well-versed in all of the topics and the age appropriateness for every student. I strongly, strongly hope that the board considers making cuts elsewhere as opposed to our invaluable librarian positions. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Kathy Kincaid. I'm the founder and CEO of Book Days, a nonprofit based here in Central Texas, all about inspiring a love of reading in children. I wanted to call in today to all in favor of full-time librarian salaries. I work on a consistent basis with many of the schools that are up for question on reducing the librarians' pay or scheduling that have less than 400 students. And it is vital to my program. The librarians are amazing in helping facilitating these character interactive experiences that we bring to the schools that are on the same level as author visits. But not only that, they are just the heartbeat of the school and helping facilitate a love of reading in children, because that love of reading will be a love of learning and really help the kids to reach their full potentials in life. So I hope that you will continue to fund the librarians at a full-time salary. Thank you so much for hearing this, and I hope you have a great day.
Victor Alvarado, educator at Austin ISD, and my daughter used to attend McBee Elementary. Today I want to talk about the cutting of the librarians in 23 schools with enrollment under 400 students to part-time position. I believe this is harmful to my students, my colleagues, and our district. The way I've seen the impact of from McBee Elementary and these students is phenomenal. The students started to read and started to even speak English, and they are ESL students. Do not cut library funding to the 23 schools like McBee. Honor your commitment to not make cuts to essential programs like school libraries. I am losing an effective colleague, and I request to not cut the funding for the libraries.
Yes, my name is Mary Wright, and I am a AISD taxpayer and a former library clerk at Lamar Middle School. My job was eliminated during the 2011 budget cuts, but I want to ask you to please not cut budget for librarians this time around. Schools need the librarians. It's amazing how much teaching they do. And do not cut the librarians. Do not do sharing. Every school needs to have their own librarian. And I appreciate you taking this into consideration. As a former librarian and a library substitute, I know what it means. So thank you very much for your attention to this, and I look forward to hearing about it in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Hudson Haywood, and I am a student at McCallum High School, and I wanted to talk about my experience with librarians throughout my school career in ISD, and how I'm really saddened by what's happening, and the fact that, especially in elementary schools, are going part-time now with librarians. It's really upsetting to me to see other kids not getting the same opportunities that I did, and, a lot of core memories came from that when I was in elementary school. So half of that for kids is it's terrible. We need to be able to read. We need to be able to find passions, and librarians are one of the core founding building blocks for that. So I'm really sad, and I hope that you guys can reconsider your decisions. Thanks.
This is Bob Anderson, taxpayer and supporter of Austin ISD for 47 years. I had an important lesson during elementary school in Lubbock at my library that I want to share. My librarian called me out of my third grade class to show me a picture of a bird nest of a particular local bird. My parents and I had seen her at a PTO show and tell event where there were real bird nests on display at the cafeteria. And we all talked about identifying birds from the type of nests they create. Well, I learned from my librarian that libraries are places to learn about all types of things in the natural world. Little did she know that I would go on to become a landscape architect and design the Balcones Canyonlands National Wildlife Refuge just outside of Austin. So please keep full-time certified librarians at every campus. Thank you.
Good evening, Board President and Trustees. My name is Mayra. I am a parent at Eastside Early High School. I'm calling to support communities in school. Many kids walk into the school dealing with anxiety, family struggles, food insecurity, or just feeling disconnected or unseen. Parents and teachers cannot do this by themselves. That is what communities in school matters so much. As a parent, I've seen a lot of changes with my daughter, not only academically, but mentally support. She has a safe place. She knows that CIS, but she has CIS at school. She has a safe place. They not only cover that, but some utilities, essential stuff for her. I really appreciate everything they do, and I really hope that you guys continue supporting CIS, communities in school. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beth Kubriel. I have a rising junior at LASA who is a member of the water polo team. We ask that you not completely ban water polo. Parents and boosters are more than happy to contribute to the cost of the water polo program. Unfortunately, UIL prevents us from being able to cover stipends for the coaches. We ask you to please fund the coaching stipend and distribute those expenses across all sports equally, as opposed to cutting the water polo program completely. It is a wonderful, growing sport. It's inclusive. Everyone gets to play and is cheered on regardless of experience. It's a co-ed sport with girls and boys practicing together, sharing coaches, and attending tournaments together. It is an incredibly positive experience that has changed my daughter's participation in high school, and
We can all remember back to the challenges in middle school, so imagine my surprise when my son shared that he loved his first year. I'm a parent at Lamar Fine Arts Academy, and my son just completed 6th grade as an orchestra major who also began studying classical guitar. Like many parents, I was nervous about the start of middle school, but my feelings were amplified because my son is also autistic. Fine arts programs aren't just another class. Yes, they learn new skills, but it's so much more. They give students opportunities to build their identities, friendships, purpose, and a sense of belonging. I had the privilege of watching my son grow not only as a student and as a musician, but in his confidence, discipline, engagement, and acceptance by his peers. He flourished because of fine arts. Cutting programs like these are at such a delicate and crucial time as middle school is a huge disadvantage. These programs require years of commitment and development to establish a proper foundation to support a student's success as well as the programs. I urge you to maintain all fine arts programs. They are not extras, but are core to student engagement and success. For students like my son, this
Hi, my name is Costin Philipachai. I'm a parent at St. Elmo Elementary, and I'm calling regarding the librarian .5 half position. Miss, our librarian, is such an important part of the school. That effect goes well beyond the library. She provides a space for kids from all different walks of life, and she enhances their own learning. They're learning about the community as well. She is truly an essential person in our community. She goes extra mile, putting on book fairs, bringing in author visits, chairing our campus advisory committee. And personally, she organized some time and set aside books on Thailand so my daughter would feel welcome and seen in the school. As the only Asian, one of the only Asian kids, that was really important. And so I'm asking you, please keep it as our full-time librarian, as she's, truly essential to our kids and our community. Thanks for your time.
I am a retired librarian from Austin ISD. The district's plan to eliminate 11 and a half librarian positions and force the remaining librarians to split their time between two campuses is unacceptable. This will not provide comparable service. As someone who spent a career running libraries, I can tell you that it is not possible, it is not honest, and it is not fair to students. A librarian's work cannot be done from home. Shelving books, managing materials, preparing lessons, supporting teachers, helping students. This is a full-time job for one campus, and the research is clear. Students are more academically successful when they have a full-time certified librarian on their campus. They show higher reading scores, stronger research skills, and better overall academic performances. Cutting librarians is a drastic reduction in service. It means fewer open hours, fewer lessons, less literacy support, and far less access for the students who rely on the library the most. I urge the district to stop repeating the phrase comparable service and acknowledge the reality. This plan weakens literacy, weakens instruction, and weakens student outcomes. Thank you very much.
My name is Catherine Dombrowski. I am the parent of a rising 10th grader and rising 6th grader in Austin ISD. My 10th grader did middle school band, then changed to classical guitar in 9th grade, where he found his jam. I am concerned about the deep cuts to fine arts education resulting in the loss of his guitar teacher. I would like the board to comment on how the cuts to fine arts compare to cuts in athletics programs. What did they weigh in their decision of how much to cut in each program? At last week's 5th grade graduation, the principal asked students to stand if they did an extracurricular sport last year. More than half the kids stood for sports. When asked if they participated in extracurricular music lessons, only 5 of the 100 children stood. Private music education is less accessible to the general population than team sports. Yet when these kids get to middle school and high school, hundreds of them will participate in musical groups, choir, orchestra, guitar, band. This brought home to me that our public schools are democratic equalizer when it comes to access to music education. Please preserve our fine arts to the extent possible. Thank you.
My name is Jorge Lopez McKnight. I'm the parent of an AISD kindergartner and an ACC library worker. I'm deeply concerned and unsettled by the cutting of librarians to part-time positions in the 23 schools with enrollment under 400 students. Not only is this misguided and harmful to students, staff, and the district, it's also severely dangerous. The information and knowledge worlds and practices of students are beautifully rich, complex, and continuously growing. And it is vital to cultivate, honor, and foster those with full-time workers who can support them in meaningful and comprehensive ways in crucial teaching and learning spaces like the school library. I request to not cut library funding to the 23 schools like McBee Elementary and honor your commitment to not making cuts to essential learning environments like school libraries. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Welch. I'm the parent of an elementary-aged child in the southwest area of Austin. I'm writing today to talk to you about the proposed cuts to library services, especially at the elementary school level. My child just started into the AIC system, and I cannot tell you how many times she's come home excited about her time in the library. To stop the momentum and the joy that the librarian is able to bring at this point in her educational career could be harmful, not just to her education, but overall career possibilities. Having a librarian attempt to cover 2 different campuses or spend extra time that they are not being paid for on campus is not the way to balance this budget. I urge you to think twice before cutting the literacy cheerleaders at the elementary level. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Don Tate, and I am a native of Des Moines, Iowa, currently living in Austin, Texas. I am an author and illustrator of books for young readers. I've written and/or illustrated dozens of books shelved in Austin public schools and schools across the country. I fell in love with this line of work 30-something years ago at a reading conference in San Antonio, Texas. There, I met school librarians, men and women who truly cared about children and children's literacy as much as I do. Librarians, they save lives. I would like to address the predicament that AISD is facing from the state of Texas, the possible reductions or elimination of elementary school librarians. First of all, I acknowledge the challenging budget situation the district is facing. In my home, we are facing some challenging budget constraints too. My mortgage payment has skyrocketed. I'm paying nearly double.
My name is Vanessa Mokri, and I'm the CTE Department Chair at Lhasa High School. Department chairs are the backbone of any campus. We are involved in everything: ordering supplies, negotiating personalities across PLCs, designing big picture campus visions. It's many extra hours each week. The work has to get done, and if the stipend we receive is cut by 50%, we cannot very well do 50% less of the duties. And speaking for myself as a single teacher who comes up short paying bills each month, even though I've been teaching for 19 years in AISD, that cut is significant money to me. I put all my time into my campus, and I cannot believe it is proposed that I be paid less. I would think that my years of experience and dedication would be respected and valued, but apparently not. Cutting my take-home pay is incredibly cruel.
Thank you to all of our in-person speakers, and thank you to all of our callers. Really appreciate the time and the input you've shared. This concludes our public comment, and people are welcome to share any comments or questions with the board by email at trustees@austinisd.org. And trustees, before we move on to our next agenda item, if you have any questions or comments regarding non-agenda item topics raised in public comment, you're welcome to share them now. And please note the district is limited to providing basic factual information or needed clarification, identifying existing AISD policies and resources for reference, or noting a topic for follow-up or inclusion on a future meeting agenda. Any questions before we move on? All right. Thank you, and thank you everyone for being with us tonight. We will now move on to our information reports and updates. And Mr. Segura, would you please introduce the next item?
Thank you, trustees. I'd like to welcome up Ms. Katrina Montgomery to support me in delivering the 26-27 recommended budget. We'll bring that presentation up, and then we'll get going. And Dr. Stephen Stapleton will also come up. Good. All right. All right. Thank you to our community and families and staff. Apologies for the slight delay. Just wanted to make sure we transitioned and got settled in. So as we move forward, I want to take a moment and just kind of reinforce the just the extreme difficulty in navigating a budget process that started with the required challenge of identifying over $180 million in reductions. I think as I sit here and not now, and as I have over the last many weeks and months, there's not a single thing that we have had in Austin ISD that didn't have a purpose. There's not a single person that doesn't have a role in supporting student outcomes. There isn't a single expense that we have currently that doesn't have an intentional role in Austin ISD. So there are no good decisions. There are no good recommendations, just to be clear. Every single thing that we have brought forward has been scrutinized, has been debated. We have gone into the details of the need, the impacts, which is why in each and every expense, there is not a homogeneous solution applied to the entire district. We really try to be intentional about limiting the overall impact, especially when it comes to those campuses that have been historically underserved. But I do want to be really clear that these cuts will have an impact. They will have an impact on student outcomes. They'll have an impact on staff morale. They'll have an impact on our ability to carry the work forward. We're just at a moment where, as it's been said multiple times, I've said multiple times, the state does not fund public education in a way that allows us to do what we need to do for our students. And at the same time, we have zero options, and we do not have the ability to not address this head on. And so as I transition to the first slide, I just want to kind of reinforce that right now there are multiple large efforts underway in Austin ISD. Each one of these take tremendous resources, time, and it's not lost on me that our community feels this, our staff feels it. Certainly accountability, ensuring that what we do isn't adversely impacting our enrollment efforts. And at the same time, we need to progress the real intentional work of developing our academic vision and framework. And it's also very, very important that we do not go backwards when it comes to all the great work that we've done in moving the initiative around special education. And so there's a lot, there's been a lot going for quite some time. And I just want to recognize kind of the pain that's in our system. And it's very hard, but we absolutely have to bring forward a budget that closes the budget deficit, puts us in a position to be sound moving forward. And it's very difficult to do without impacting staff when 88% and plus percent of your budget is tied to payroll. So I just want to make that statement because it is very hard, and I certainly know there's a lot of pain in our community and certainly with our staff as we go through these changes. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Katrina Montgomery to take us through the next couple slides, and then we'll hand it over to Stephen, and then I'll close this out.
Thank you, Superintendent Segura and trustees. The first slide that you see here is our district priorities. I won't spend too much time on this, but we have our accountability, our enrollment, our academic vision and framework, as well as special education. And you'll see to the bottom left, budget, and our goal is for a steady state to be fiscally responsible and make sure we're allocating our resources appropriately. So by the numbers, we wanted to create a slide that would show all of a recap. And so if you look at this slide, we have 330 campus allocation reductions, and I want to be clear, this is allocations. And in a little bit, Dr. Stapleton is going to tell us the difference between allocations, and he's going to tell us the actual staff impacted. And then the non-campus, which is departments, is the total of 228, and those are 228 positions that were vacant, that were collapsed. Currently, the recommended budget that we're presenting here today, we've reduced our operating expenditures by 12%. There are approximately 4 properties that we're going to monetize, totaling $60 million. We've spent 100+ meeting hours, and so this is where I want to take a second to also agree with our superintendent about how intentful and understanding the impact on our community as well as our staff about the intents of the work that we have to do to reduce the $181 million. We understand it, and we also understand that we have to move forward with making these reductions so that we can have a stable Austin ISD for many years to come. We've had a 3% decline in our ADA, a 4% decline in our enrollment impact, and there's been many meeting opportunities. A lot of those meeting opportunities were done with central office staff, but we also had meetings by our principals where they had coffees and staff meetings. There was tons of things done to make sure that we could bring our community, our staff, our campuses along with us. And in doing this, we had feedback results of 900 on comment cards and over 7,000 survey responses. So percent to goal, this document shows that at the bottom, when we presented on May 7th, we were 64% there. When we presented on May 21st, we were 73% to the goal. And as of today, we're presenting that we have made the 100% of the goal. So our implemented budget reductions, so we've reduced $185 million, and I want to talk about how we did this. The district-wide reductions that we've made is $12 million. We talked about the property monetization for $60 million. Campuses is $33 million. Departments is $32, but then you're also going to see a department force reduction, because after all of the line-by-line work that we did over the last many months, we were not able to get to the goal without having a force reduction, and it's totaling $17 million. And you're going to see in the future slide how that is being reduced. So the total department reductions are $49 million. And then the district-wide staffing reductions, which is $31 million. And what this $31 million is staffing reductions that we will do in July through December of 2026. And it will be done through restructure, attrition, and leveling. So I want to be really clear on this part. This $31 million is an additional reduction that we would have to take in the next school year. So the superintendent and I are committed to doing this from July through December of 2026.
Yeah, Katrina, if you don't mind for a moment, I think it's worth elaborating, because one of the questions we're going to get here in moments, and it's just better to answer it now, is are we committing to a reduction that is not yet identified or realized? And I think the appropriate answer to that is yes, because we haven't gone through leveling. We don't know where we're going to end up when it comes to the number of students that go all the way through the enrollment process and are actually in the seats. In years past, AIC has not done a really good job of leveling. There are reasons that we haven't done it well. I think that whenever there's a person in a seat and a campus, we are very sensitive to making a move. And when you do that over and over again, you end up not taking that cost down, even though the enrollment doesn't support the overall allocations. And so when you do that, at scale, when you have over 100 campuses, that gets away from you fairly quickly. And so this time around, we've modified all of our processes and systems, so we're being very clear that we're not releasing allocations until enrollment gets to a certain number. It has to be met and has to be sustained for a certain period of time. And the other thing that I also want to share with our trustees, in years past, you've seen us include a vacancy percent in our budget. That's not in this budget, right? So in years past, you might see 2% vacancy savings as a line item. It doesn't exist in this budget because that's where it's going to come from. So it is a different way to truly communicate what is going to happen, instead of just putting a 2% number or some number in there of what we expect to happen. We're telling you how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen by. So just wanted to kind of make that clear.
So this next slide is our administrative cost ratio. We've made some updates since the last time we've presented this to the board. The TEA standard is the black line where they're saying we should be at 0.0855. From 2019 to 2020, we were under the line. 2020 to 2021, we were pretty close. 21, 22, 22, 23, you can see we were over, which meant we were spending more in administrative costs than TA would want us to. And then 23, 24, we're under the line. And then the rest, the final three bars are estimates. So we don't have the data, but what the team went back and did their best to do to estimate. So for 24, 25, we're estimating that we'll be at 0.0726, and the standard is 0.0855. The one thing that I do want to point out is for 24, 25, the ratio is going to change, but we use the same methodology to calculate. 25, 26, which is this current fiscal year, it's showing us at 0.07. And then for 26, 27, it's showing us at 0.0635. So what this document is showing is that all of the work that we're doing, we are seeing some progress in making sure we're reducing our administrative cost ratio. And then this FY 26-27 assumption timeline, I want to spend some time here, and the superintendent might jump in as well, because one of the things we hear is why do the numbers keep changing? And so we really want to make sure that we're clear on why the numbers change. And so you'll see in January 16th, Travis Central Appraisal District gave us our property value estimates, and this was between a -3% and a -5%. And then on February 9th, we got our enrollment projections, and we went on and went on. And then on March 27th, we got our template from Casey, which was version 8. And then we did a consultation. So we constantly make sure we're either talking to TASPO is Dr. Bronson, or we're talking to Casey to make sure that all of the work that the team is doing, that we're vetting it, that there is someone else looking at the information, so that not only that we can provide the most current information, but also the most accurate information. On April 20th, we verified the template. Again, we were still at -5% property values, and it was based on our fourth 6 weeks. And then on April 30th, that's where we decided we have to call it. So our final assumptions was a -3% in property values and a -3% in ADA change. And then on May 5th, we got a template, an updated template, version 9. And then on May 7th, we received our updated enrollment projections. And May 21st, we got another template, which is version 10. And so this is the part that I want to talk about a little bit, is when we're getting the templates and we're continuously revising our numbers, the numbers will change. Our revenue numbers will change, our estimates will change, and utilizing the most current template is the best way to do it, because we could have stopped at version 9, but going all the way through version 10 is important because you want to make sure you have the most current data as possible. May 27th, we recommended our scenario developed, again, -3% property values based on 6 weeks. May 28th, the team spoke with Dr. Bronson again, and she gave us some suggestions of some things that she thought we should do to update our numbers. And so that's the work that we've been doing to calculate our revenue. And the one thing I want to point out that we've talked a lot about, Travis Central Appraisal District does not give us our final certified values until July 25th. And as we know, that's once the fiscal year has started and long past the time where the board had to vote on our 26-27 budget.
Thank you, Katrina. I appreciate the opportunity. What I want to reinforce here to our trustees and our community and staff is that even in the last 3 weeks, as we make very difficult reductions and we come before the board and we get feedback and make adjustments, an assumption being proposed to us to be modified from a subject matter expert moves the line by $4 or $5 million. because of how big our budget is, right? A small percent multiplied by a big number is still a big number. And so there's a lot of frustration in the system because it feels so late, and it is late, but a lot of what we're getting in these templates that are dropping in May used to drop in April or even prior to that. So we are getting refinements to our budget, which is then us requiring us to go back and say, we thought we were close, and now that target has just now moved $5 million further away from us, which means that I have to go back and find the next most awful thing to cut. And that is what it's been like for a very long time. And so I know there's lots of questions and conversations going around about, well, why do we find out so late in the year? Even notifications going out, in the last couple days. This is what's driving a lot of that, is the compression of the timeline that's removing the numbers, which means that I have to go back and find $5 or $6 more million where I didn't think I had to 3 weeks ago. And then the question becomes, as an organization, if we're going to be honest about the budget, if we're going to be honest about the assumptions, and if we're going to be really clear about what we're going to spend on, you don't bypass an assumption just because it doesn't help you. And that's a conversation Katrina and I have quite a bit. So just next slide.
So this is our budget adoption assumption slide. We've presented this before, but I want to talk about now we have the final right column that is the recommended. So we have our enrollment. Originally, when we did the preliminary budget, it was at 69,550, and we all had some thoughts and concerns about that number being a little bit high. So what we did in the budget team is we built in an enrollment, like an adjustment. And so we built the number on 66,768, and that was in the preliminary. But now on the recommended budget, our enrollment is based on 68,329 students. Our superintendent just spoke about the vacancy savings that we normally put in the budget. We wanted to do 0% this year. We feel that that's the best way because we know that and Dr. Stapleton will talk about this, how we're moving our staff around, and so we felt like it would be more accurate to have a 0% vacancy savings. Our average daily attendance is at 59,717. And so our adjusted ADA and our property value change are both at a negative 3%. So the department force reductions, these are reductions targeted and incorporated into the budget. So what does that mean? That means that when we put this $17 million, I'm going to choose finance to talk about. This $300,000 has already been taken out of the finance budget. But now what we have the opportunity to do, we're requesting from our leaders, is to go in and tell us, how do you want that $300,000 allocated? Do you want it allocated between staff or non-staffing? And so this is the work that our leaders are just starting to do as of late this afternoon. So each one of these lines you will see, these are impacts that have been force reduced so that we could get closer to the target. So all of these items here equal a total of $17 million.
Yeah, and I just, Katrina, if you don't mind, go back. There's always this conversation around, central office cutting more than campuses, and I want to be really clear. We've been cutting at Central for years. We've taken lots of reductions already this fiscal year, and we're taking reductions for the next fiscal year. After those have been netted out, this is us going back again, sweeping everything, holding it, reducing the amount, and saying, okay, Katrina, even though you've taken these cuts, I'm now going to reduce your budget by $300,000 more. You reset your budgets and communicate to me how you're going to make it work. So it's a zero-based budgeting approach that you have to take once the gap has gotten closer, but there's still more to go. And it's really the only way to do it. It forces hard decisions. It is very hard to do. But these budgets will not exist in the next fiscal year, to be clear. So it's not like we're telling the trustees, hey, we're going to cut $300,000 next year. We're not going to tell you how. What we're saying is Katrina doesn't have $300,000 in her budget. So just I want to be very clear. This is not going to be in the budget. So anyway, Katrina, I want to make that point.
Thank you. So here's the 26-27 general fund budget. You can see, you've seen the slide, the amount that we decided to recommend is a 15% fund balance, and so that's the third column. And then the far right column, you see the recommended budget. And when we did our preliminary, we talked about earlier, we did that at a negative 5% property value growth and a negative 3% ADA. So you could see with changing our assumptions to -3 and -3, we increased our revenue, but also as our revenue increases, we all know here that our recapture increases. And then the difference between our operating expenditures is the 12% that we've worked to reduce over these last few months. And then at the bottom, we are having the zero vacancy savings, property monetizations. It was originally $45 million, and now it's $60 million. And then it's going to show here reductions needed as zero. So this will get us to a fund balance of 15.5%. So these are more detailed slides, and this is our revenue and recapture slide. And so what we want to show with this slide is where we were at adopted versus preliminary versus recommended. And so let's look at the recommended column. You see our tax collections are $1,340 million. You have our state aid, and then you have what our summary of finance revenue is. And this is the template that we talked about earlier. And then we have other revenue of approximately $94 million. And then the total revenue is $1,477 million. And so, again, that has increased from where we were at preliminary because our assumptions changed. And then you have our summary of finance recapture in more detail. And the reason why we have revenue and recapture here is because the more revenue we receive, the higher our recapture goes. And so we just wanted to show how they work pretty much in tandem with each other. And so at the bottom, you see our summary of finance calculation. So, and then what the difference is. So the difference between preliminary and recommended is a difference of a negative $4 million. And the reason that changed is because of the updated template that we used. So then you have operating expenditures, you have our payroll, which you could see is $915 million at preliminary to recommended $815 million. Our contracted services, supplies and materials, other costs, and then our total operating expenditures are now $907 million in this recommended budget. Our property monetization is $60 million, so the total change from preliminary is the $185 million. So for 26-27 recommended payroll and non-payroll costs, we want to show how much we spend on payroll. And you've seen this information before. It was just presented a little bit differently. So our payroll cost for campuses is 78% of our budget, and our payroll cost for departments is 11%. And so if you total those two, our total payroll costs are 89.9% of our budget. And then you have also on this slide non-payroll costs. And this is a new slide that we've worked on because we wanted to talk about what does financial stability or flexibility look like. And a few presentations ago, our superintendent talked about having the revenue, less recapture, and then that should be our operating expenditures. So when you look at this slide, when we've talked to our consultants, their recommendation is that payroll should be 81 to 83% of your revenue less recapture. And so currently you could see the preliminary budget, but then next you see the recommended budget, which is the middle, which is our 907. Again, 89% of that $815 million is on payroll costs. And then you'll see in the following column, the 82%. And this is where we would like to be. And so this is saying our payroll would be $694 million. We'd invest $92 million in non-payroll or non-staffing costs, and then the balance would contribute back to our fund balance. And the reason why this is important is because this is one of the challenges we face when our revenue comes in less. So much of our budget is payroll. And so what the superintendent just spoke about is true. It is very hard for anyone to sit here or in any seat and impact a person. And in the moment because of the change. And so that's what we talked about, leveling. And so as a district, we want to make sure that we're getting closer to having our payroll costs be 81 through 83%. And what we did here is we just took the average of 82%. This is something that is very needed for our district. It is going to be very challenging to get there, but what this does provide us in future years is more flexibility. As our revenue, our property values, or our enrollment changes, this gives us more stability to make the changes that are needed to pivot at the moment that the changes happen.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Katrina. The one thing I want to say is that to accomplish both of these at the same time is very difficult, and Katrina and I talk about this quite a bit. The first goal is to make sure that you can afford all the expenses with the retained revenue, right, which is revenue less recapture. That's goal one, right? So a balanced budget. Then it becomes, what is payroll's percent of the overall operating budget, right? And that is what I think Katrina's referring to, is if you want to be able to navigate the ebbs and flows that occur with average daily attendance or, an immigration policy change, if you the closer you get to 90%, the more difficult it is for you to navigate that, and there are lots of reasons for it, and we'll talk about some of those as we explore next steps. So I just want to, that is a target. Every school district is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be a little bit different. But we need to drive that payroll number down if we are going to be able to adjust as things happen in the state of Texas and all around us. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Thank you. So for FY 26-27, we just wanted to make sure we had a slide that was really clear about for 26-27, this is the staffing that needs to be impacted in the current year. And so we all are very sure that it's very hard to make changes in the current year, right? But there will be, for FY 26-27, additional $31 million staffing reductions need to happen. And the three ways we're saying we can do this is through restructure, attrition, and leveling. The superintendent and I are committed to getting this done by December of 2026. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Stapleton.
Thank you. So it's not lost on us that staffing adjustments and allocations are not ideal to happen in the month of May. We know that. We know it's traumatic to our employees. We know that it's difficult, and it's difficult when we hear our staff and our teachers and other employees come and talk about it. But to Superintendent Segura's point of reaching this number, there are changes that have to happen, and it's part of our effort to restructure and refine our staffing allocations. And so on this chart, it's broken down. This is the elementary slide, so there's elementary, middle, and high school, kind of an overview of those changes that were made. The first being the one you're most familiar with our class size ratios at the elementary level. We broke that down to indicate that there is no change right at pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 through 1 for those ratios, and grades 2 through 4 at our band 1 campuses and our unacceptable rated band 2 campuses maintain their 1-to-22 ratio. The other campuses in bands 3 and 4 and remaining band 2 campuses that were not academically unacceptable increased to that 1-to-24 ratio. That also impacted the same in terms of criteria for our 5th grade, increasing from the 1-to-25 to 1-to-27 at those same campuses. The additional changes that occurred most recently were with our librarians, counselors, and assistant principals. If we look at our librarian FTEs, whereas campuses were historically allocated 1.0 librarian FTE per campus, that has changed based on enrollment. So every campus is allocated 1 unless the campus is enrolled below 400. So at that 399 and below threshold, that allocation was reduced to 0.5. Now, I do want to provide a point of clarity as we move forward with these adjustments with these fractional FTEs, is that for our 0.5 librarians at a campus, we are committed to making everyone whole. We're not reducing folks to part-time positions. So if we are working with our library services department and our school leadership to ensure that while it may not be you may not be full-time at one campus, that will be split between two campuses now. And so we're looking at pairings based on geography, based on need. We've already had principals and our library services department reach out to us to make those connections so that, and that could look differently depending on the persons or depending on the caseload, but most likely what that looks like is on certain days of the week, you'll be at one campus, and other days of the week, you'll be at another campus to ensure that library services of standards are met and that all of our certified counselor employees are made whole. And we'll further break down those numbers here in a second. We also had similar shifts with our counselors. And so at the elementary school level, there was a formula that was based on a 1 to 450 student ratio that was weighted with special education students. Our new staffing criteria is based on enrollment, so at a 450 to 1 still, but with one thing that we heard from our principals was the addition of 0.5 counselors or 0.5 fractional, if you will, not whole, so that we could meet some of those needs in the middle. So if you didn't quite meet that 2.0, you would receive that 1.5 based on that student enrollment. So that's where we saw the biggest change. What didn't change was the criteria, and both state law and also the policy that we follow that every campus has to have a certified counselor on there. So that's why there's a minimum of one counselor per every elementary classroom or per elementary campus. Next were the assistant principals. Our staffing at elementary is one assistant principal per elementary campus. That is, our formula did not change based, it's still weighted with our special education students with a factor at elementary of 1 to 450 for students overall, but that is a formula that you've seen in the past. I think at a budget workshop, you may have seen that. It's in our staffing guidelines. There is another piece that we wanted to point out there is that campuses with large emergent bilingual population, that being defined as over 80% of the school population and being 400 plus EB students, that they'll receive an additional assistant principal over that allocation to support those needs. In addition to that, for counselors and assistant principals at any consolidating campus, so a receiving campus for the 26-27 school year, those campuses would also be held harmless in terms of these new and updated ratios. At the middle school level, on the next slide, we applied, if you remember, the teachers, the 6.5 out of 8. So the 6.5 was really defined as that resource envelope for our principals to make those programmatic determination in terms of the additional planning time. So all teachers, of course, receive their state required, minimum of 450 minutes over that 10-day period. And now with that 6.5, not quite the 7, not down to the 6, allows the principal to deploy those minutes across the campus in the way that they determined fit. Of course, our TAP and Restart campuses are still staffed at an 8 to 10 ratio to protect that double block that they do for math and ELA. And so, but the next part are there are librarians, counselors, and assistant principals. The librarian, that applied across the board, so everyone gets a 1.0 librarian, with the exception of campuses below 400. They receive the 0.5. Counselors, similar to elementary in terms of this, but just higher in scale, is that we have a minimum staffing threshold of 2 counselors at every middle school, and you'll see that progress similarly. And this is really, that's not anything different than what has changed before. Same at the high school, the 3 counselor minimum, but we did remove, if you look at that bottom staffing requirement at the middle school counselor, middle schools receive 2 counselors except when the overall student enrollment is below 350 students, which impacts 2 of our campuses. And that ratio, whereas in elementary was the 450 to 1, it is the 350 to 1 ratio that also we modified. So we took out the formula and included the student enrollment as the determiner of a 1, a 1.5, or a 2.0. So in that case, the 350 to 1 ratio is where you'd have the one counselor, or you'd have two of where that one typically meets. And then as you go up, so to 700, it's that two. And then above that, you can begin to get into that 0.5 increments. Assistant principals, we also have assistant principals, minimum of 2 per grade level, or 2 per, middle school, with the same emergent bilingual type exception or addition, if you will, this time at 70% emergent bilingual population and 600 plus emergent bilingual students. Again, held harmless where consolidating campuses. At the high school level, again, we also see, as we're very familiar with, our teacher ratios, again, with that 6.5 resource allocation there of how they were staffed with the TAP and Restart campuses, staffed at the 8 to 10 as well. Librarians stayed the same as the other formulas. Well, they didn't stay the same as this year, but the formula has been applied across the board. That did not impact any high school campuses. And then our counselors and assistant principals staffed at a minimum of 3. Counselors, again, with the same criteria as our middle schools, with the exception of the minimum of 3. And then our assistant principals, again, removing the formula maintaining the formula, but again, with the emergent bilingual factor of 60% of the students and 800 plus emergent bilingual students. So that was kind of a lot to consume there, but that is sort of laid out of what it was. So that first layer being the teachers, that next layer that was most recent being the librarians, counselors, and assistant principals. Then we can move on to the staffing ratios and planning time. So looking at this is where what Katrina was referring to earlier in terms of the estimated impact. And I want to remind us as we're looking through this data that this is estimated impact on allocations. This doesn't necessarily mean teachers, right? This could be vacancies. And the next slide will kind of go over the human impact of this. But if we, this is really looking at, if we said that we have 81 is the estimated impact of elementary teachers, as of 6/2, we had 180 elementary school vacancies. In addition to that, we have 143 non-certified, or essentially what you would say District of Innovation teachers. We represent that number there just to show you, in case there weren't enough vacancies, that we would begin to look at displacing uncertified individuals so that we could maintain our commitment to employing all of our certified teachers, certified counselors, and certified librarians, which has been our commitment to our employees all along, is that even though we know folks are impacted, both certified and uncertified, that our commitment remains to our certified teachers, our certified librarians, and certified counselors for them to have a position in Austin ISD. As that goes down, you can also see the estimated impact that we've seen across. And so the one thing is the librarians. So that is estimated impacted allocations is 11.5. I know we've heard a number tonight of 23 campuses impacted, and so that is because of the 0.5. And so that 0.5, it's 11. That 0.5 23 times, that's 11.5. Allocations total. And so I wanted to kind of bring that out because that is an area that sometimes requires a little bit of thought and thinking through of how that could be. I want to get to this slide, the impact versus placement, because our first point of order for our principals and our staff was that if you had a vacancy, that's what you'd close first. So if you had a vacant counseling position, you would close that. You wouldn't reduce an individual over a vacancy. So that was rule number one. It makes sense. I think we can all understand that. If we look at let's just take a look at our librarians, for instance. So that impacts 23 staff, those 23 campuses. Of those 23 individuals, 19 of them or are certified librarians. 4 of those are what we are familiar with, are the formerly called the library media specialists. Those names are changed to Associate of Library Services this year. Those are uncertified in the state of Texas librarians, and we are working on this second half of the chart of what we're working through. As you can see, we're working first through our first phase, which is at the top, which are our teachers. And so those are the elementary, middle, and high school teachers. And so you'll see that at the elementary level, we had, of the 41 staff impacted, that we have 24 of them placed. There were 9 of them where placements weren't needed. So this could have been through a principal, similar to kind of what happens in leveling, moving teachers around on their own and coordinating with talent strategy on that. That could also be because of a resignation. But a lot of times it is because that there was something worked out on campus where that teacher was a fit to maintain that staff. Awaiting internal confirmation. Again, this is numbers of 6-2. These numbers change every 30 minutes, and where they're getting smaller and smaller. So that awaiting internal confirmation just means to ensuring it's a good match. We communicate still with our staff, with our principals, both the sending and receiving principals, to let them know where that teacher has landed, and then the 2 still needing placement. That could be for many reasons. Sometimes it's we haven't found that match quite yet. Maybe we are working that out in terms of where that best match would be. So the difference between the awaiting internal confirmation is just saying, okay, the employee's good with it. The need placement one is maybe we're still talking to that employee of where that placement's going to be. We know that we aren't just going through a spreadsheet with folks and applying them to campuses. We're still talking to our teachers, still understanding. We know people may have made different plans. Maybe they live on one side of Austin, have lived on one side of Austin, but they're planning on moving somewhere else. So we make it a point for our staffing coordinators and our staffing teams to know our employees very well and ensure that we're aligning to their needs, because we want to retain our employees and ensure that they are heard and that they can have a successful year within their placement. We are working with, through our counseling teams and our assistant principals. Our assistant principals are working with Office of Teaching, Leading, and Learning for those placements in which we have vacancies across the district. All that to say is that with these teachers and with these counselors and assistant principals and librarians, every single one, we're confident that all of our certified individuals that are in these positions, that we have positions for them. We can't snap our fingers and make it happen as quickly as we wish it could. We are limited by our staff, but we're working around the clock because we know that receiving information, especially on the last week of school, can be unsettling to our employees, to our assistant principals, librarians, and counselors. And so we are working as fast as we can to have them placed. And so our goal is by the end of next week to have folks settled where we can have them settled, so that the other part of this is that we're in a hiring freeze right now for our campuses. We also know that there are still going to be likely vacancies on our campuses after this, and we have to compete with surrounding districts. We have to compete to get employees here, and so we don't want to, and we have campuses that have employees committed and waiting, and we want to be able to lift that freeze. So while we don't want to introduce people into our system before we know we have a spot for everybody, but we feel confident more and more every hour that we do have that spot. We know those spots exist, but we wouldn't want to take up a position where we could have placed somebody and have one of our current employees waiting any longer. So that's where that happens. But our deadline is next week to have our employees placed and that hiring freeze lifted. And to be in a spot where even if there are employees that are still needing placement, that we know that we'll be able to find them a spot, and that's because of their certification or of some other situation where we're trying to find that perfect match.
Thank you, Dr. Stapleton. So we've talked about FY 26-27, and so now we just want to make sure that we're very clear that for FY 27, 28, here are some of our goals and challenges. So we know that in the 26, 27 budget, we have $60 million worth of land sales. So for 27, 28, we're going to have to automatically start reducing the $60 million because the $60 million in FY 26, 27 is an opportunity for us in 26, 27 to not make all of the reductions in one year, but we want to be really clear that we know when we're planning the budget for 27, 28, there's $60 million that we have to reduce. The other things we want to look at for FY27 is evaluate our staffing contracts, move towards the 81 to 83% payroll budget, establish a modified budget calendar, and contribute at least $20 million annually into our fund balance. And so the one point on here that the superintendent and I did talk a lot about was contribute to at least $20 million annually. We want to be really clear that to do that, we have to make the necessary payroll or staffing reduction so that when we get more aligned into the 82% of payroll, that gives us the opportunity to start building back our fund balance. And so then this next step is to our budget adoption. Today is June 4th. The deadline for the public notice, the team has already been working on that for June 8th. The budget adoption vote by you, the board members, is June 18th. And we just talked about July 25th is when we get our certified values from TCAT. And so one of the things we hear a lot about is we want about the numbers and how our campuses are doing. And so we really want to make sure that when we're talking to everyone, our staff, our community, our parents, that we express the importance of making sure we have our students enroll. And so some of the new student recruitment efforts that have been done, you can see that it's broken down on this slide. Early childhood, there have been webinars and an early learning day, pre-K registration fairs, you have community events, campus tours, and social media and radio. So there's social media posts, and we have upcoming bilingual radio ads on the stations listed below. In progress, we have an onboarding of a recruitment coordinator, data procurement for targeted marketing so that we can find exactly where the students are that aren't attending Austin ISD, and a new enrollment system and investment in recruitment team. So there's approximately 5,100 2026 new to Austin ISD registered students. So that's registered this year where we were compared to this time last year. Register for the 26-27 school year. To all parents listening, please secure your spot and help your school plan. We really need to make sure that we're working together to increase our enrollment. And then this next slide talks about if you need help with registration, there's a website, there are walks, Austin ISD help phone line, and then those are all remote, but then in person, there's a calendar of events in the bottom right that can be selected if you need help in registering your child. We also wanted to spend some time talking about volunteer opportunities. One of the things we hear when we go out into the community is people are like, what can I do to help? And so this slide talks clearly about Volley. All volunteers are required to complete a background check at no cost, but we really do want to see our families volunteer. And here's some opportunities that are included: district-wide engagement events, library assistance, front desk help, field trip chaperones, and lunch monitors. So we really need our community to continue to invest in Austin ISD as we move through this challenging time. And then we have the Austin Ed Fund. Some of us have talked about I've also heard many times from our community, well, what if people want to give? How can people also support? So we've told, everyone has heard tonight the importance of enrollment, how you can volunteer, and then this is how you can give support. You can give to the Austin Ed Fund. There's a QR code to the far left, and then you can also give to a specific campus to the far right.
Thank you, Katrina. I think before we close this out, What I want to reinforce to our community and to our staff and to really anybody that's willing to give me 2 seconds. You can go to the next slide. There are lots of really incredible things happening in Austin ISD every single day. We have people that work incredibly hard. We have incredible students. We've been tackling one hard thing after another for the last many years, and our system has responded, and we are a very resilient community. And I know that we have really difficult conversations on the dais and with our staff, and sometimes it can be scary to hear those things. But to our families in our schools, there are amazing things happening every single day. And I just don't want to make it feel as though because we're having these hard conversations that somehow we're still not an incredible organization doing incredible things every single day with incredible staff, teachers, counselors, librarians, the list goes on and on and on. And I was reminded of that, I think, over the last 15 graduations after I spent thousands of, minutes having conversations with lots of people, staff, families, parents, just all very appreciative of what we're doing here. And we're not alone. The entire state of Texas is going through this. I just don't want to lose sight of that. And I know it can be tough, but just wanted to make that point before we close out. And certainly happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you for that, Matthias. The graduations were incredibly joyful and really a reminder of why we're here and, how all the great things our students are going on to do. And it was really fantastic to see all of that. Thank you for reminding people and reminding people that that's what we're trying to protect, that progress, that success, those opportunities. So thank you. And thank you for the presentations, both of you, Dr. Stapleton and Ms. Montgomery. Trustees, who has questions or comments? Trustee Hunter.
Thank you. First, I want to acknowledge the work you guys have been doing. Thank you for that. And then Trustee Gonzalez and I had an opportunity to talk with central office staff, one at 11 a.m. and one at 2 p.m. I don't even remember when that was, like maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And they really were very open. And I want to take the opportunity to mention that the people in this building are educators, they are support staff, they are public servants. They are experiencing a lot of the same things, stipend reduction, position reductions that our campuses are. I'll share one quick story from a gentleman. He says, I've been here for 18 months. In that 18 months, I've had a demotion, I've had a salary cut, and now I'm fired. And it's crazy to hear. And I think the thing that he said was most demoralizing is when he opens up LinkedIn, he sees starting a new position at Austin ISD. And I think we're lining up the weights of the cuts, and I think they're uneven. I want to cover a couple things in the presentation. It would have been better to stop at that moment, but I'll cover them now. I hear the statement that we can't go back, and for me, I can only speak for me, I can't go forward. And I understand all the implications of what that means, the spending freeze. I understand that it could trigger TA, it could trigger an audit. I get all of that. But there's some misalignment in our work, in our practice, and our beliefs right now. I heard Dr. Stapleton say that people are being placed in the right position. My email is full of people that are saying the exact opposite. And I'll just give you one example. A part-time high school fine arts person was put in a full-time elementary position. That's not a good match. And that person now has to make a decision. Do I keep a job and take from my family, or do I just do something else, or do I leave education altogether? And I need some clarification, Mr. Superintendent, about the announcement, because there's a way to do a thing. And I don't understand how people are being told that they're like, you don't have a job, or you have a different job, and it's like, school is out. One librarian said, I can't even say goodbye to my kids, right? Or whatever. So I really need some clarification, because again, there's a misalignment between our practices and our values. I have a question also about if you have 400 students and you have a large population of EBs, you get an additional assistant principal. I don't understand that, weighting. Why would you get an additional assistant principal? Would it not trigger more teachers? Am I missing something?
So that's a criteria that's been part of our staffing criteria for some time now. It is one of the rules that have been around that we staff on. And so at the elementary level, it's twofold. It's over 80% of the population of the campus population are emergent bilingual, and there are 400 plus emergent bilingual students.
Sorry, could I interrupt? But in the interest of time, can we stick with the question, which was why?
Why would you get an additional principal?
So there are a lot of extra. So there's the TELPAS language assessment. There are other needs that emergent bilingual students have. I'm probably not there are probably some other folks that can maybe speak to the needs around that and the history around that, but I know that has been part of the formula for a while, and it's to support our emergent bilingual students who we know need that extra support as far as language acquisition and testing and everything that comes along with
And
that.
assistant principals do that? They do the TELPAS testing?
At the elementary level, for sure, and at different levels, there's definitely the LPAC, there's administration of that, there's a lot of additional testing and paperwork that is required for that.
Okay, thank you. That didn't actually answer my question the way I'm trying to figure it out, but I will better word my question so that I can get the answer that get closer to the answer that I'm seeking. I will leave it at this. There was a commitment to keep cuts off of the campuses. From all of the information that I have, all of the numbers that I have, it says simply, when it's weighted, it is heavier on the campuses than it is anywhere else. And if I've misconstrued that, or you have some different documentation that I'm not seeing, I need to know that. But we have already, the campus is carrying the brunt, and we said we weren't gonna do that. So I'm not sure why we're doing that or how we can correct that, but when I look at the numbers, and let me just go over here so I can just be quick so we don't have to belabor the point. Hold on, here we go. Budget analysis. Okay, so when I say I'm looking at the identified central office department reduction. So I got special ed at 4, academics at 3, finance at 3, technology at 2.4, talent strategy at 1.8, school leadership at 1.1, superintendent and chief's office at 1, right? For 17.2. And then when I come down here and I look at the campus, one more, gotta go one more. Where am I? I got elementary, secondary planning. So here I got secondary planning, time reduction 12.4, elementary class size increase 6.5, elementary planning time reduction 3.5, counselor allocation changes 2.1, assistant principal allocation changes 1.2, librarian reductions 897K. That's the campus.
Yeah, so I think there's so if I can refer you to page 13, I think that'll help with some of the perceived imbalance. 78% of payroll costs are campuses. 78%. So there's no way to reduce the overall costs without proportionally impacting campuses. At 78% of our entire budget is payroll costs at campuses. 11.1% are departmental costs. And so when you think of the total impact on a dollar basis, it's going to be higher at campuses because it is 7 times greater than the total cost at departments. So by just that number alone, it's going to be greater. When it comes to the 17 million that you referenced, Trustee Hunter, that 17 million is in addition to the 32 million that is above it on page 5. So it's not 17 alone, it is the 49 that's departmental and then future departmental by way of force reductions. So when I was talking to Katrina Montgomery, I've already taken her budget and I'm now taking it again and saying you're gonna reallocate it with $300,000 less. So it's 33 for campuses, 49 for departmental force reductions, But I think the one thing I'd reinforce on top of all of that is that payroll costs at campuses is 78% of our budget, department 11.1. It cannot be done without some type of, it's going to be heavier because that's the bigger part of our budget. So I can try to break it down different ways, but that's what's driving the numbers.
And then I will share one last thing that a community member shared with me, because that's a great explanation that you gave me. These people don't care. They absolutely do not care. She said, what she said to me and what I took to heart was, I want to see more than a reduction in travel and snacking. Those are her words. I'm not using those words. Those are the words she used. She said, I want to see a reduction in more than travel and snacking. And then she said, when I'm looking at the change, the transparent, it's still so opaque. Like, if her total quote was, and I'm sharing what a constituent shared with me, just so we understand that, but it's still poignant. What is it that you cannot do at central office because of your cuts? Because the campus can tell you what they cannot do because of their cuts. So I think if we're saying that it's heavier, like you just told me the numbers, you told me it's heavier over here, then we should be able to say we can't do this at central office because of that. That's what I think has to be clearer, because right now it's still too opaque for people to understand. It's a little opaque for Ms. Hunter also to be able to understand. So as we move forward, if there is to be a forward, that has to happen. It absolutely has to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants? Trustee Willichu?
Yes, I can continue to go down the line. So I'm going to start off with some questions about data that I would like to see at our next meeting that I'd like to see attached publicly. So I've put these in the trustee tracker. And I'd like any trustees that if you would like columns added to this data, please please comment as we go around so we make sure we get questions answered that we're asking. Okay. Looking at my tickets. So I would like to know for central office allocated staff, I would like each position in the 2025-2026 budget that makes $75,000 or greater. So I want them listed out each individually, their department, a brief description of the role. I would like the total cost of employing that individual, so salaries, benefits, stipends, etc. I would like if that position is vacant or filled. If that person has resigned or if it's been eliminated, or if it's being rolled forward in next year's budget. And so next, I would like a campus reduction. I would like every single proposed campus reduction that is being proposed in this budget, so line by line, that person's position, whether they're certified or not certified, part-time or full-time, their campus name, and I might have put some other things in there. Because right now I'm finding out about those from people here, from emails. I'm finding out directly. I haven't seen that. What I do see is kind of like vague terms like Band 4. I know what that means, but not everyone else knows what that means. So what Band 4 elementary campus is, having larger class sizes means that 1/3 of elementary students in this entire district will be in larger classes. So that's 1/3 of students in Band 4 might sound like, oh, this is just a couple of schools. These are schools that have a lot of students, including students experiencing poverty. 1/3 of the students receiving special education services, teachers will have 0 extra minutes beyond the minimum to attend ARDS. So each of these schools have hundreds of ARDS a year that I don't know how they'll attend under this plan. I don't know how the teachers will do any required meetings, respond to all the emails they get, which, and they're now larger classes, I don't know how they'll do their job with all the expectations we have in Austin ISD for those teachers. So that cut is extremely concerning to me, the larger elementary class sizes. And so is that one just for band 4 schools? I'm having to toggle back and forth. Could you put the slide up that has our elementary school cuts? Because I see these cuts are very disproportionate on elementary, because really there's nothing left to cut in elementary. They don't have a bunch of extra activities. All they have is librarians and developmentally appropriate ratios. So these large cuts to elementary are not going to get us where we need to be. That's not going to get us having kids that are all literate in middle school so that they can be in the extra activities that they want to be in. And so I didn't want to do this and get nitty gritty into the budget, but we're here now. And so 23 elementary schools not having full-time librarians, Costa is a savings of $897,000. So $500,000, that's 13 of those schools. So is a deputy superintendent's office worth more than 13 schools having a full-time librarian? So we can choose a deputy superintendent or 13 schools having a full-time librarian. So that's $500,000 in cuts. So I think that's one like I can find in a spreadsheet. I can find the savings there for having full-time librarians at schools. When we were talking about closing schools, the reason I was even willing to enter that conversation is I wanted to have real conversations with the community of what we wanted to have minimally in our schools and having all of our schools be functional. What we got instead was $20 million that went directly into funding TAP plans. And so that's a choice, but that's not a choice that I felt like our community got to decide. And then now, rolling forward and saying, oh, actually, we're going to cut full-time librarian positions from 23 elementary schools. So I'm really concerned about, I love to go into preschools all throughout Austin and talk about what we have in Austin ISD. And I have one presentation. I'm not there saying because people want to go in and shop for schools. That's how we've kind of been trained. And I go in, I say, you should go to your neighborhood school. Everyone has a full-time librarian. Everyone has has arts, PE, music. And now do I go in and say, well, if your school has an F, your teacher will get adequate planning time. But if your school gets better, then your teacher's going to be treated worse. And I don't know how to have those conversations. We're entering a really, really difficult moment, not just as a budget, but where this community who loves us and loves Austin ISD, even coming here where they are hurt, they were so kind and they were so honest and just trying to help. And it's the time to close ranks and hold on to what we value. So right now, the budget is not there for me yet. There hasn't been changes based on our feedback. We've had little time to look through it and get feedback. I would urge you to listen to us today and come back with a different proposal so that the opening offer isn't hitting for me.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Trustee Quintana.
I have a question about, sorry, where did it go? Librarians, all Band 1 campuses, which will include all campuses that currently have a TAP or will receive a TAP in 26-27 will retain current ratios. Band 2 campuses with UA ratings will retain current ratios. I think where I have difficulty is around the campuses that have less than 400 students. I'm worried that the campuses that have less than 400 students are other historically underserved schools that don't necessarily have a TAP attached to them. So I don't know how we can address that, but
I mean, I think Trustee Quintana, I think this goes also to Trustee Whitley Chu's, like we created minimums a couple years back to help protect the smaller campuses. We did that in 2023. It's the first thing I did. We could afford it. That was the honest truth, is at that point, we had seen a lot of property value increases for years. We had a healthy fund balance. You know, it's a very difficult thing to talk about, but at the end of the day, when you have smaller schools, we're funded based on the number of students that we have, and if you're distributing allocations based on the funds that you have, you get to a point where the number of students don't fund that teacher allocations. It just doesn't work. And so we are not able to create the floor the way that we did a couple years ago. And so what we're saying is, if I have to scale back, because this cannot get solved, y'all, this cannot get solved without taking payroll reductions. It can't. Not with 89% of your budget being payroll and the vast majority being on campuses. It's not possible. It just isn't. And so we've been trying to be very intentional. If we're going to scale back in a way that limits the adverse impact to schools that have been historically underserved, which is why you see the kind of the tailoring around Band 1 and TAP schools and schools that are Band 2 but have unacceptable accountability ratings tied to them. I think to Trustee Whitley Chu's point, it doesn't address that. Right? It's the opposite, right? Because she's right. The larger schools that have the student populations, and in some cases in certain parts of town, they have been higher performing historically, so they do not fit into that criteria, but they are larger student populations. And so this is the juxtaposition of how do you do it in a way that doesn't make it a one-size-fits-all, but recognize that no matter what you do, one part of the system is going to be impacted to a greater degree. The board asked me to be very thoughtful about equitable reductions, and I think if you look at Band 1 and TAP campuses and UAs, I think we all would agree that those have been historically underserved student populations in those campuses. The evidence is there, and that's what guided our conversations. Now, if it's not acceptable, that's something I have to think about and work with the team on. But there just means that what other payroll reduction are we going to take? Because you can't take it out of other places that don't exist when it's 89%, and then the vast majority is campuses. So we're trying to be very intentional, but there isn't an easy answer, Trustee Quintana. There just isn't.
I understand that. I think also touching on what Trustee Whitley Chu mentioned about, how we were going to have baselines for what we could expect in every single one of our schools. I've had an expectation that we would use this opportunity of, really combing through the budget like y'all are doing to establish that baseline. And so I guess I just figured that librarians, even in schools that, don't have more than 400 kids, but have been historically underserved, would somehow be a part of that baseline. So those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think for me, I hope that I've communicated clearly that I value librarians. It is impossible to do this without some refinement. If the question is, can we have a librarian at every school? Then the question becomes, can we have it at a school that has 100 kids, 150 kids, 200 kids, 250 kids? I mean, at some point, the question becomes, because we're just saying below 400, right? I mean, it's everything in between. That's a good question, right? Because we have counselors required by law. APs, principles, the methodology that we have that's been refined and it's old. I think it needs to be adjusted once we get through the academic vision and framework process. But I mean, I do not want to eliminate librarians. I mean, that's why we work so hard to try to retain the position. But it's very hard to retain it everywhere, especially at the smaller campuses, just because of what we're faced with. But if that's not the case, then I got to find the money elsewhere.
Yeah, I understand that, and I know that the state of Texas doesn't, fund our librarians and our libraries in the same way that we would like them to, or in the same way that the school district values our librarians. But I guess what I think about our smaller campuses and where we have smaller campuses on the east side is because of a number of things, right? We have too many schools in general. We haven't touched boundaries in decades. We haven't, addressed enrollment maybe in the way that we should. There are so many things that contribute to having these small schools that is, goes far beyond my time here, your time here, or Katrina's time here. But at the end of the day, it's not these kids' fault for the fact that their neighborhood school is a small school. And I guess that's just where I have a problem. And it's hard. I know it is, but I gotta speak up for my small schools.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that we, I appreciate that comment. I just think that when you look at consolidations and boundary changes, this does get helped with boundary alignment, right? It does get helped with having more students. And the argument, I think, was also used at high schools. The larger the high school, the more programming you can have, the more offerings you can have, because the size allows for it. We've had that conversation with the dais. We know that for a fact. That is also true at elementary schools. But we don't. This last time around, we made some pretty significant changes to move some of that. But generally speaking, it is very hard for smaller schools to support the staffing needs, and we adjust where we can, but at the end of the day, it's very hard just because of how limited we are in resources. But that's good feedback, and to Trustee Willie Chu's comment on the line-by-line campuses and changes, that's certainly something we can produce.
Trustee Singh.
Okay, so I'm going to pivot a little bit. I want to talk about transportation. So on slide 5 of one of the documents, like the nice table, I guess it's attachment 3. Oh, it's up. No, not that one.
No, in attachment.
It's an attachment.
Attachment
It's
3.
not a slide, I think, right, Trustee?
Yeah, it's attachment 3,
Okay.
page 5. Okay. Actually, page 6 is where I had a question. The top of page 6. The very first cell there, if someone can put that up. Transition to a hub model for middle and high school student transportation to or from a neighborhood elementary school instead of previously identified stops. What does that mean exactly?
So the model that we moved magnets to this last year, right? So magnets, Lhasa and Richards, Keeling, and Lively, they had district-wide transportation. We moved them to a hub model to where they picked up from campuses in the neighborhood, and that reduced our overall miles to support those campuses. So this is proposing taking that model and applying it to all middle schools and high schools. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think one thing, just because this is going to be, I think I know where you're going to go with this question, but in the two areas that, just to be clear with everybody, that we are underfunded the most, it's going to be sped and transportation. Like I'm going back to a text that Chris gave. We get $1 per mile from TEA, but we spend $7 per mile. It's an attachment. We have to, it's not, we have to.
Okay, it should be, if someone can get that up, though, that would be really helpful. Sorry, I just want to make sure people know what I'm talking about, because it's very important, and if people.
I described it correctly.
Okay, so is this what you're actually proposing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think if our public understood this, we would have had twice as many people here tonight. So what I'm understanding, somebody who just, so my kid went to Clint Small. Does that mean that I would have had to drop her off and pick her up every day from Oak Hill Elementary?
If that was the closest elementary, I don't know where you.
Yes, that's the closest elementary. So now you have all the middle school and high school kids that live in my neighborhood having to go to Oak Hill Elementary and be picked up there to be taken to their school. And then I have to go back there and pick her up and bring her home.
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
I mean,
do
guess.
people realize that?
I mean,
We are
my
now
kids are at the
taking-
bus. I understand what it is. I
Okay.
mean, our transportation costs are so gargantuan. I mean,
I
I can't,
know.
we're talking about payroll, we're talking about all these things, and that is a huge cost.
I know,
There's
but
no way to reduce.
But we're, like, my kids would have lost, like, seriously, 20 days of school. And I'm like a trustee with a car. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I know there's like hundreds of things that are questionable, but to me, this is like a flat out, like, no-go. Because it is absolutely gonna kick us, where it hurts the most. Our enrollment, our ADA will just drop, like, in a huge way. So yeah, this is like a complete no-go for me. I'm sorry, but like, and I don't even know how logistically it would work out.
We can make it work. There are school districts that do this in the country. It can work. I mean, I don't want to understate the challenge and the impact, but it can work.
I just don't know this. Like, I feel like, really think about this. How, like, a family who doesn't have a car and their child relies on the bus, how are they going to get to school then?
Well, for middle school and high school, that's why we want to make elementary schools the hub, because they're more accessible than middle schools and high schools.
Yeah, but my elementary school is about 3 miles away from my house.
In Southwest Austin, well, in parts of town, it's larger, not everywhere else. In most cases, it's within the walking distance if you look at the number of elementary schools that we have.
Okay, so you're proposing that.
No, I'm not.
All I'm saying is, like, this one little square amongst all of these documents, I feel like needs its own, like, giant news alert. Because I think a lot of parents are not going to be able to send their kids to school.
I would love to share. This is one of the concerns I have as well. I think it's an average daily attendance concern. I think it's a safety concern. And I think we're going to have kids walking across highways where I know where Arthie lives and I know where Oak Hill is. And that is not, I wouldn't walk that walk. I wouldn't. It is very unsafe. My kids would have to cross a highway to get to our local elementary school. I have real concerns just about the function. And I understand it's working for magnets, but we also know our families whose children attend magnets often have different capacity from our other families. They have had the capacity to understand the school exists, to navigate the application process, to be comfortable sending a kid far away. I think this is pretty basic. I absolutely know this is one of the massive places that security, special education, and transportation are the 3 biggest funding gaps in what we receive from the state and what we are required to spend. I think we are going to have students get hurt. I think we're going to have students not show up to school. And I do have real concerns, and these are children that we're talking about. And I have real concerns also about having that many middle and high schools congregating outside our elementary schools in big numbers. I really struggle with this one. And I think there are a couple of things in here that are really going to cost us more than they save us. And I know that there is a large district in Texas that tried to make some big reductions in bus service a year or two ago in response for a similar reason. And they had traffic jams so big that it was an issue for the whole city. And kids weren't getting to school and they had to backtrack. And I just really, really struggle a great deal. And I know it's not a tiny savings, but I really, really, really struggle with asking this of our families and putting our students in these situations. That it really worries me. And I think we're going to have students get harmed. And not every neighborhood is equally safe for a kid to walk to an elementary school.
Well, many of them are walking already, just to be clear, because they're within the 2 miles under the elementary.
They are, but not.
I guess the one point I want to make is we're talking about, so you mentioned student could get injured or harmed, and I just want to be really clear, like, that's in the details. We have, we bring plans to you whenever we have a hazardous intersection. We can make hubs elsewhere. I don't want, the model is going to rely on properties that we own because we can control them. It doesn't mean those are the only hubs in the entire system. But I hear both of you. I'm sure there'll be others that provide feedback on this as well. I'm happy to do what is required. But I think to jump to say that we can't figure this out in a way that doesn't mitigate some of those concerns, I just don't want to go down that path because there's a lot of details in it. It's just, and it is different everywhere, every part of the city, and it doesn't have to be an elementary school. It can be other locations, but right now picking up every student at every location for middle school and high schoolers, it's an expense. And so I'll look at it. We'll take the feedback. And
Would there be savings with fewer stops? Because I know the bus in my neighborhood, the elementary school bus comes from across Mopac because it's identified as a hazardous site, and it drops off every half block. And I think that's, maybe we could limit the number of stops. Maybe we could make routes longer. I would just, I have concerns about safety, and I have real concerns that it's going to impact our funding in a really profound way because we're going to have a lot of kids who don't make it to school.
Yeah, and lots of our buses are not full, just to be clear. I
would rather see longer routes. I'd rather see a lot of other things before we go here.
I think, so we'll look at it. I just want to be clear, longer routes aren't always feasible. That's the whole magnet issue. You can have longer routes and fill up a bus, but you're going to get on the bus at 5 a.m. And I think there's the competing conversation around how long should a student be on a bus?
And not too long. I hear that.
So it's not as simple as one or the other.
But I also worry if a student never gets to the bus, they never get to school. And that worries me too. So, okay, thank you. And again, I'm someone with a car, and it's really flexibility. I think this is going to be a real burden to a lot of our families. Okay. Thank you, Trustee Singh. Giving it back to you.
I think people have no idea, and I would really hope that our communications team puts something out immediately about this, because parents will understandably have a lot to say, and it will probably undo a lot of our enrollment work that we've done because of other schools that do provide transportation. Anyway, there was also some mention of that $31 million that you haven't really, that are like additional cuts that would happen, that you would be able to do in between July and December. And I would like a little bit more detail on that, like, looking at historical information, how much of that would you expect would come from, leveling, vacancies, that type of thing. I just want, just a little bit more detail. I understand the concept, but I think that's too big of a bucket for me. That's a huge amount of money. And so I think it would be really important to be able to share some of that.
So we can, we can provide some additional proportionality to the 31 million. I think, I don't want to be disingenuous and say, okay, I can just make it 4%. I think I want to be really clear because at 2% vacancy. Well, but we're not including the vacancy percent. So this is, in my opinion, the more honest way to do it, is to show the total amount that we would capture. And what I can do is take 31 million and say, we expect, 60% of that to come from vacancy savings based on historicals. And this amount from leveling, I think there's going to be some movement in that number, if that makes any sense. Like, if I tell you what I think it's going to be, the goal, I just want to.
I'll tell you why. It's not just for the sake of, giving y'all more work to do. It is because as trustees, our job is to track all of this and make sure that the budget that we pass actually, that we actually implement it. We're spending a lot of time creating a budget, and we have to spend a lot of time tracking it as well. And so this helps give me a little bit more having more detail on this number gives me more confidence that you'll actually be able to achieve it. So that's why it makes it easier for me to track, to see every month, are we actually making movement towards this 31 million? Have you all really thought it through? Is this realistic? So that's that.
Yeah, like just to put a finer point, like a 2% vacancy savings on a previous number would be around 20 million. Like 15, with our modified payroll, it'll be less than that.
Okay.
So I can maybe break it down and
That would be super helpful.
lumps.
Yes. The last, I have a bunch of comments. The main thing far and away is the thing about the transportation for middle school and high school. Everything else is minor compared to that. But I would say, I really like the setup here, how you all have done it with the table and showing really clearly. But again, to help us ensure that we can track this budget in a meaningful way, I would like to request more detail in the format of a budget report that has a lot more detail. I'm accustomed to getting a binder this thick every time that we pass a budget. And I will actually, it's honest to actually maybe not read every page, but know that it's all there in one place, so that if we have to refer to it, it really gives us that level of detail. And so that is my expectation, just having a document, like a one-page summary and like a 10-page addendum is not going to cut it for me personally. And so whatever these are based on, I want to see like the finer detail. And in the past, we have also gotten detail like campus by campus, so we can actually see what each campus is getting. So, that's the kind of stuff that we've done in the past. And so I hope that's in the plans for this year as well.
So to be clear, I'm familiar with all of the iterations of the budget from back when Nicole was here. I've seen them all. The clarity and I would say the detail behind what is driving the budget, we haven't done that before. I understand the details in the budget, but these are actuals, right? These are costs that we went that we have been paying, and we went kind of backwards. We backwards designed this. Okay, we've been paying $500,000 for this expense. Is that something we should be spending at all? Or what you previously saw was a line item for, X amount of services, and then below that there may be some note as to what previous vendors had been tied to it, but it wasn't clear because it's a budget versus actuals. What we can do, because this is a reset, is kind of reset it and say, based on these budgets, these are the new budgets by department. These are the things that are included within it. And then, as appropriate, add kind of detail. But some of it, like we're providing you is way more than what you would see in a budget. Just to be, like, you're not going to see sub-vendor name, times this many invoices tied to this budget item. In the budget, what you'll see is a cost for, like, legal services or whatever. So we'll backwards design it and get you that level of detail.
I'm assuming all this is not just living on a PDF. This is living in a complex, budget.
But we load
database.
the budget backwards now because we're having to attack it from this way. So we're not starting from the last year's budget and then going down, because you'll never get there.
Yeah, I don't want you guys to create something new, because y'all have other things to do. But whatever you have that this is based on,
Let's load the budgets.
just export it. And that would be really helpful. I think that's the level of detail I think our public should have, and that we as trustees need to have too. So, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Additional comments or questions? Trustee D'Arioste.
I just want to clarify that I understood correctly. 60 million of this budget is based on land sales, and we need sustainable additional cuts afterwards because those land sales are for 1 year, correct? I want to make sure the public understand that because I'm just polling the audience for the people on TV. I just want to clarify because as much as we're talking about specific items here, there's an additional 60 million that we still have to talk about for next year. Yeah, and there's 31 million that's prospective, on the staffing, but so that's 90 million. That's half of our deficit reduction plan. That's kind of deferred. It's not actually. I mean, I understand.
I think the 31 is not a defer. I think it's more of a not realized because the system hasn't gone through yet.
But I think for the
60 for
of
sure.
the public, and so I want to clarify because I certainly have received comments and emails about looking for stopgaps, don't cut as much, and so selling 4 properties to generate $60 million is a pretty ambitious stopgap, and it leaves us with a huge amount of work still to be done. So I just want to point that out because that's 60 million of reductions that we're not having to do right now, but that we will have to do. My concern I will bring up around that is the same one that I brought up before. That's 4 land sales in Austin, Texas, where property sales and development are historically an issue for anybody, much less for us. And so I have concerns about realizing that $60 million next year, particularly considering some of the delays that we've had in the past. And I want to engage that discussion as much as we can because the public needs to understand that we are choosing to do that now. If we pass this budget now, we're saying we're putting off $60 million worth of cuts. And I don't know that that's going to be, clear enough to the public that these sales are the ways that we reduce, that we not avoid those cuts, we delay those cuts for 1 year. Yeah, we're deferring those. Another thing, and again, I'm just doing this for the sake of discussion. I do not pretend to be an accountant. Looking at central office, because it comes up a lot, I don't know that my read on this, if we eliminated 5 positions that were above $100,000 pay scale, if we went to top level positions and we eliminated 5, and then last time I made a outrageous suggestion of a gradated pay reduction, and so if we did everybody above $150 or $150,000, 5%, if we did a graded, or I think it said 200,000. My tablecloth math is that nets us a little over $2 million. And I just want to bring that up again because $2 million is, barely over 1% of the deficit that we're looking at. And so I'm reiterating it, not, I still kind of would like to see this consideration because I do think it shows, that our money's where our mouth is. But the point I'm making on it is that it is also just a drop in the bucket. But if we're cutting water polo, that's a drop in the bucket. I think we need to look at every single drop in the bucket that we can because it's going to mean something to other people. But I'm trying to talk out of both sides here because I'm acknowledging that does not close all of our deficit. And also to the public is if you're looking at your administrative staff taking significant salary cuts, the same that you're talking about students leaving, the same as we're talking about staff leaving, we would potentially lose people at central office. And so all of that, I'm just calling out because again, we're looking at 60 million worth of cuts next year.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that that's really, really addressed. And I'm going to keep bringing it up.
You should.
Every meeting from now on. Okay.
So one thing that I don't think I did a good job communicating because to your point, Trustee Arioste, and I think to maybe combat this narrative that somehow central office is not contributing, in this budget is a 5 duty day reduction. Like just to be clear, that is a salary reduction for staff. It's 5 duty days, and so there are people who are going to get 5 less days of work, right, over the course of the year. So their total income for the year is reduced by that amount, and it is not a small amount when you think about how many people that impacts. There are people who make way less than 100,000 and 75,000 who are tied to this. That's the difference between being able to pay a bill and not. And I'm hearing all that now from lots of people. And so when I have conversations where we talk about it's not being felt, I can't do a 2% reduction. It doesn't work that way, but I can take away duty days. And my argument is, if I have to do this because I need to get this budget, I don't want to devalue the earnings per day. I would rather maintain earnings per day and then give back days that are not required by way of contract or by way of position. And so now from a 1 week shutdown, you go to a 2 week shutdown, and then the question begins to cascade pretty quickly because you get to, down to below 200 days. Now you're impacting staff that are very closely tied to the campus, right? I mean, principals, assistant principals, we took them off the table, but they were on the table at one point. And so I think to your point, Trustee D'Arioste, that is in here, and it is not a small amount. I mean, it's in the millions of dollars, but it's not 10, and you can't really cut much more because now you actually limit the ability for us to maintain compliance, right? The ability for us to support our principals, because then you create this compression between people who are getting paid less that are supporting people that are effectively getting paid the same or more. Right, and that creates huge disruptions in the system. So, like, everybody is taking a reduction by way of duty day up to a certain position, and now I can provide that backup because you'll see that it's mostly people who are. It's all people who are not campus based.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and
we didn't touch on that, but I think it's an important point.
I think you do need to touch on that more specifically, and I think it would be very helpful for people to understand. And I appreciate the clarification around the duty days because that obviously makes more sense for that level of professional employee. I think since it's so different than it would be for campus staff, that's not translating over, and it would be very, very helpful for morale for that to be communicated in a way that is understood, because I think the way that duty days work and the way the pay scale works and all of that isn't translating well. Yeah. It's hard.
I will do a better job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Trustee Kaufman?
First, I would watch the clock. I would like to just really thank all my colleagues on the dais for their comments and for the details that they're looking at and for the advocacy they're having for our students and our families and for our district to have a budget that works for everyone. I don't agree with every statement that's been made this evening, but I appreciate where the messages are coming from. But to our superintendent, I'll say that your job is to balance the budget, and you have brought us a very difficult budget that takes us in that direction, and I appreciate that. You will get beat up over the specifics of what you're proposing in here, and when we pass a budget in June, no matter what's in it, we will get beat up for that as well. And that is because we know that staff and students and families are feeling beat up by the proposed cuts. And so the frustration and the advocacy coming from the community is very real because this is impacting them. And I acknowledge that and recognize that. And I will I will accept all of the criticism and the critiques that come when we do pass a budget that's hurting people. I do greatly appreciate all the advocacy and the testimonials that we're getting by email and in person and at these meetings about how cuts will negatively impact people and programs. Like, we need to hear that. And even after we hear that, we're going to make cuts that precisely do those things. So it's going to hurt. And I think you have been very clear that cuts this year will have to impact campuses. That's unavoidable. I don't think you've misled us or the community in saying that we will have campus level cuts that will hurt and campuses are going to feel it. I feel like you've given us adequate warning about that, and I believe that you are trying to minimize those cuts and that pain, and that it's unavoidable to some degree. I do expect that you will continue examining district office staffing and spending and continue to look and to sweep again and sweep again and sweep again. But I won't agree with anyone who says that the cuts are not affecting central office or that somehow it's not being done that way. The impacts are very real. So I appreciate, one of the comments that Trustee Hunter mentioned from email. But I received one from a longtime colleague I've known since 2004. And I've seen the work that she's done on campuses. I've seen the work that she does in central office. She's been in education for 30 plus years, probably more. Her work is extremely important. It directly impacts students, and it impacts the staff members on campuses that serve students. She is an imperative, like she is a saint. She is a must-have person in this district. And she's lost $20,000 last year because from retire-rehire surcharges getting reverted back to the employees. She's lost 5 days of duty this coming year. She's lost a travel stipend that is, it is income. It is money coming into her, and she's losing that. So she's losing, thousands of dollars that is impacting her family and causing her to wonder whether she can continue doing this work here. That is real pain for a real person who does real work to serve kids in a real way. So the cuts are being felt at central office. They are being felt on campuses. So I just want to, that's my soapbox. A couple more soapbox things. I will say that with our current budget challenges, we can either adjust staffing minimums at small schools or we can close small schools. We cannot realistically with this budget continue to offer the same resources to a school that has 200 students as we do for a campus that has 800 students. I appreciate how you said earlier, we set those minimums 3 years ago when we could afford them, and now we can't. So then we look and see how can we right-size that in a way that's going to minimize the impacts on kids. There was a comment raised about how will I explain to people why their school doesn't have this anymore because it doesn't happen to have a certain population of kids. Well, that is one of the core challenges of equity work, is explain to people why does this community get something that this community doesn't? Why do these kids get something this community doesn't? And when it's based on needs of students, when it's based on reparations for resources they haven't gotten in the past, then we have to explain that to people and help them understand. Yes, this student gets this because this community deserves this because of what they've lacked in the past. So I think that is a challenge that we'll have to do. I think we more often get the challenge of explaining to parents why their school doesn't offer French or why their school doesn't offer geometry or sculpture or golf or Star Wars, which are courses that some of our schools could never imagine being offered, and yet we have schools that offer them. So yeah, it is challenging to explain why some campuses have a full-time librarian and others don't. But there are other challenges that we have to explain all the time. All right, questions. Transportation. If the state law requires that we provide transportation for students living over 2 miles away, would we require students to travel over 2 miles to get to a hub elementary?
Yeah, I think that's where the implementation would be kind of modified based on the area. I mean, Trustee made a comment about a certain part of town that does have larger attendance boundaries.
Yeah.
There are other parts of town that have lots of elementary schools all throughout the feeder pattern in the vertical of the high school, so you would not have as many areas that go beyond 2 miles. So
okay, but legally, would we be able to require a student who's entitled to transportation because they're more than 2 miles from their school to travel more than 2 miles to get to a school, to get to a hub?
I mean, I don't want to speak on the legality of it. I'm sure I'll get a text message about it here in a moment from Chris. But I do know that there are school districts that don't offer transportation at all in some areas, right? So you get reimbursed. I think it's special education is required.
Okay.
But the reimbursement is really what's tied to the 2 mile halo, not the
Okay.
special
Well, I will
education legal
echo
requirement.
Trustee Singh's points about the importance of communication going out about that. I mean, I think people knowing what their bus route will look like next year, the sooner the better, because I think that will be something that would be very difficult for families to get their letter in August saying that their route is now distant. So I would just ask for transparency in this. If it's a cut that has to happen, then okay, but I would want transparency so families can plan ahead and adjust. Have you assessed the risks of losing enrollment to charter schools or other schools that offer more transportation, or the risks of the ADA decreasing because of more absences? Have you all assessed that?
So I would say not to a point where it's been brought into a budget analysis, because I think every one of these things has an impact on student enrollment. And I think that trustees often ask me, what have you quantify the impact of this thing occurring or this thing occurring. And the reality, it's an amalgamation of everything occurring at once.
Yeah.
So I think we can do a better job communicating what we think may happen.
Right. Well, I do encourage, for the ones that feel like they will have a huge impact, I do agree with Trustee saying that this one could have a huge impact. And so just the ones that you anticipate might have a huge impact, I would really like to be able to know that we've done that kind of analysis to make sure we're not having a net negative because we cut something that generates income, revenue. Librarians. How much time do librarians spend providing scheduled times for classroom visits, like when a teacher brings their class to the library?
I don't know if Dr.
I know they do that. They do lots of other things, right? They do cataloging, they do shelving, they do book ordering, they do lessons, they do support for teachers, they do a million things. But my experience with librarians, they spend a lot of time with scheduled visits from classrooms to the library. Is that still accurate?
That's still accurate, yes. I know that for sure.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to understand then is if we have a school with 15 classrooms, right, from pre-K through 5th, and we have a school with 45 classrooms from pre-K through 5th, it just feels intuitive to me that the school that has 45 classrooms is going to spend a lot of time scheduled for visits and have less time available for open library or for kids to just come in or to do, in-classroom work or partnering with teachers. But a school with 15 classrooms is going to be able to serve all 15 of those kids with the visits and then have more time available than the librarians. So I guess I would like to know I would love to hear from our librarians, and feel free to email me to correct me on this, but it makes sense to me that a school with a much smaller number of classrooms and for fewer students and fewer students, fewer books being checked out because you have fewer students checking them out, that school would not require the same staffing library-wise as a larger school.
Yeah.
So I would just like to understand. I understand I would never, in a budget-rich time, I would never advocate any cuts to library services, nor fine arts, nor water polo, nor anything else, right? But when I'm hearing you looking everywhere you can for possible cuts, that one sounds to me like one that might not have as big an impact as some of the other things that would have to happen. So I would just like to hear the contrary opinions to that.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I'd also ask is not just librarians, but also principals. I think their voice should also be included in the conversation as far as providing feedback, because they're the ones who are responsible for the entire school and how it operates. And certainly I want to be able to provide that. I can't speak to the specifics. I do understand kind of anecdotally and just based on what I've seen in the data, but I can't tell you like how a 250 student elementary school, how that one specific school kind of operates versus another 250 student elementary school versus one that's 450, but I can provide examples and certainly get feedback from the crew back there and others.
And I'd love to share with our librarians in the audience, I know you have the answer and I know you're here and I appreciate you being with us. And there's not a format for us having a back and forth conversation with the audience, but you are fierce advocates and you know how to reach us. And I know you will use that well, and I think it's a great question. So thank you for sending that to us.
And in the 50 emails I received tomorrow morning, I will happily schedule time to actually talk with you and listen to you as well, to hear it directly, because I really do want to kind of understand that. And as someone who was a principal of a school with 198 kids and a full-time librarian, and a school with 950 kids and a full-time librarian, I felt I would have fought for my librarian at either school, right? I would have said, I have 200 kids and I need this librarian because here's all the things she does. And I was a school with 950 kids, and I would have said, I need another, we need help for this librarian because there's so much to do. So I am always going to fight for librarians. In a difficult time, this is one where I'm hearing the reason, I'm hearing the rationale. And thank you.
So Trustee Kaufman, as I said, Chris is always watching. So there are only two requirements for school bus transportation. First, special education students per IEP. And then second, students that are tied to the McKinney-Vento federal law requirements. Then districts are entitled to provide additional services per transportation state funding, however not required.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to be very clear that that's what I've received, and that backs what my initial understanding of it was.
And it goes back to the $1 reimbursement for every $7.
That's why that makes.
Okay,
that
so I would go back to that one, and it's critical to kind of do the trade-off of what are we going to lose versus what are we going to gain. So a couple more. CIS, I asked about CIS the last time. I've learned more about CIS in the time since then. I just really want to make sure that in considering the CIS cuts that we're also looking at the what all we're losing, right? So when we save $40,000 by cutting out one school, that we're potentially losing at some schools 3 and sometimes 4 full-time staff members who are working to support kids at those schools. So it's a savings of $1 million, but is it at the cost of how many staff members who are directly serving our kids in ways? So just making sure, I know that you know this, but I just want to really make sure that all those variables are considered in this. Similarly with the attendance. So the data that CIS is providing is that they've, through their addressing chronic absenteeism, that they've saved 22,000 attendance days. When you look at students who had chronic absenteeism, they supported, and that they are now attending school regularly, and that translates into $1.1 million worth of ADA generated revenue. So I just would like, again, to make sure that all these variables are being considered and that we're not cutting things that ultimately generate revenue in the long term. So I would love to learn more about it. That's on my agenda for my one-to-one, but I'd love to follow up.
And also, no one thing is always the.
Right.
So I mean, I just
understand.
I get that comes a lot, and I want to be very thoughtful. And Dr. Maxwell's been working with CIS to make sure there's a thoughtful solution wherever we end up. And I would never take credit for any whole thing, and I don't think no single partner ever does. It's all of us working together.
Understood. But again, just going to like that, what I'm saying again is going back to like that is one where I think a risk assessment is really important to do the analysis to say what do we anticipate happening here when this happens. Similar with Literacy First. So as we cut Literacy First, like that's a program that when I was a principal, we invested $15,000 and we got 5 full-time, 50-hour per week AmeriCorps people serving our kids, both through trained tutoring, but also with staying after school to help with events, coming on Saturday field trips, doing all sorts of things with 50 hours per week for 5 staff members for $15,000. It was the best money, maybe it was $20,000, but it was like extremely well spent. Again, if we have to cut things, we have to cut things, but understanding like we're not just cutting some reading tutors, we're cutting like full-time staff people.
Yeah, just to be clear, I mean, there are 2 different contracts that are tied to that specific partner, and there's a scale back, not a, so just, that's all in the detail. But we're trying to be very intentional about how we scale anything as back, but sometimes there's one partner that has multiple types of ways that we engage with them. That is one way, but there are also others that are part of.
I would like to see the detail part then for that. And then I continue to hear from people associated with SHAC that we are not necessarily fully utilizing our community partners who are offering free mental health care for our students. So I just wanted to get some follow-up on that from you on, are we fully utilizing all the community partners who are offering free mental health services for our kids? So, and then finally, I was very appreciative of all the water polo students here. I was extremely appreciative of the salutatorian at Austin High who spoke about co-founding the women's water polo team. I just would like to have more details about what the numbers are where it says being cut due to low participation. I would just like to have some more detail to understand where that recommendation is coming from. All right, thank you. That was very long, but thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Foster?
So thanks for all the work thus far, and appreciation of we're getting to something that's approaching a balanced offering, which is what's kind of required. Just kind of want to acknowledge some things. One, I hope we can step back and understand we're in the Hunger Games. And just think about that for a minute, that what's happening is that we're pitting and getting pitted against, is it this cut or is it that? And do they have too much or do they have too much? Nobody has enough. Nobody has enough. And part of, and this is deeply ironic, part of our challenge right now is that what we know is our seat. and the pain we're feeling in our seat by the cuts in our seat. And we know our seat most intimately, and then we know our neighbor and our campus, next level of intimacy of our knowledge, and then it expands outward. And I think what we don't see is that every circle, every node is a node that is in deep pain. And so it's my personal opinion that we might be kind of a little off when we think they're not suffering and they are. We're all suffering. Maybe we trustees are suffering less because nothing from nothing is nothing. So you can cut our pay all the way because we don't get paid nothing. So we actually, ironically, joking, not joking, we're not suffering the same way. Because I don't have any expectation of making a dollar, I'm not making a dollar. So I just have the pain of my friends and colleagues and people across the district and hearing all of their pains as they say, please don't cut this, and somebody else says, please don't cut this, and somebody else says, I don't think they understand, this is how I'm in pain. And all we're experiencing is thousands of emails with very heartfelt and real expressions of pain. We're in the Hunger Games. And I'm not for District 7 more than District 5 or, whatever it is. So just to name that. I also want to name that the reason why we can have this level of nuanced discussion is on top of the fact that Austinites are dialed in and soaking up every piece of information. Part of why we can have the discussion is because the information is actually there. And there's a long-standing critique of a lack of transparency, but what we have is 8 documents deep with here are all the campus-based cuts, and Trustee Singh's able to go to page 5 and this single line and see what's happening with transportation. And because these trustees are dialed in, see that, this is a challenge coming. Here's what's coming here, and rightly kind of naming it. But the reason it can be named is because it's been named in the documentation. And there's hundreds of school districts around this state where there would not be this level of documentation. And the interesting thing is then what we need is more documentation to talk about the documentation. And at some point, we're going to be up here mad because the 1882 resubmission wasn't tight enough. Not acknowledging that the same people that are having to work the budget and pull these numbers are also the same people trying to assess the accountability data that's coming in, also trying to improve the 1882 submission, part of which is an assessment of accountability data for other districts and other potential partners. Also, while we're trying to have a boundaries discussion and better pull that off right, also while we need to talk about the repurposing of properties, also while we need to make some staffing decisions by legal deadlines, also while we should be doing the work of assessing incoming STAR data to make decisions about our academic plan for next year. All this is being done by basically the same group of people. So I feel like it's wrong for me to get frustrated because the trustees, we all have a responsibility to dial in and only vote for a budget that we can understand and really get our heads around. But on the other hand, how many hours are there in a day to do the work by the people sort of doing the work? And as we dial in, I feel like we're at a point where, and maybe this is, I'll just stop with that piece of it. I am of deep, immense sympathy to all 80,000 or so people involved in this enterprise. And I am committed to all 80, I'm making up the number. I'm trying to add up the number of students and the number of staff and the number of central and come up with a number. I'm just gonna say 80,000. And I hope that as we move forward, we do proceed with an understanding that's something that I happen to believe and others may or may not believe, that this organization is populated top to bottom by people who are giving and of integrity and deeply committed. The tough part for the decision makers is making hard decisions that in this arena, as Trustee Kaufman said, are going to hurt people. It is tragic that the argument that this is going to hurt, say, our enrollment, or this is going to hurt our service to students, it's tragic that that's not a good enough argument anymore. It's not a good enough argument because we are at the point where every single decision we make from here on out is which way are we going to hurt our staff that we love? Which way are we going to hurt or serve our students less well? And so we have this solemn, awful responsibility of weighing whether to cut off a pinky or a toe or something like that. That's probably horrible to say it that way. But that's how I feel. I don't know how other people feel. I have immense, I'm just, like we all are, just hurting for all the folks who are hurting in very concrete ways. I anticipate very hard decisions coming forward, but one thing that I'm not gonna give into as we proceed is an assumption of irresponsibility in the work and actions of all the folks from all the way up and down the line as we do this work. So keep doing this work. I promise as a trustee to keep listening and to keep trying to reconsider. I find, as a for instance, the transportation discussion very interesting because on one hand, I think what the superintendent would say is we get reimbursed $1 for every 7 spent. And so there's a kind of huge chasm and gap there. So let's close that gap. And then that also aligns with let's do something structural that doesn't impact people. But on the other hand, what some of the trustees have pointed out is, okay, do we shoot ourselves in the foot because that has an even bigger, sort of enrollment decision? And at that point, we have to make decisions as to whether we think the superintendent and his team can come up with a plan that sort of works. But when I hear, don't cut these 2.2 million, but I also hear, don't cut these people, I'm kind of left with a paradox. I think we're going to have to keep figuring out how to do the same or more with less, and that it's going to be extremely painful. I'd rather do something on the transportation hub side than on the people side, on that sort of thing. But these conversations that keep coming up, I'm finding extremely interesting. I'm deeply impressed with how deep our trustees go, and I'm deeply impressed in how deeply connected to our communities our trustees are, and I'm deeply impressed, as I have been for several years now, with both the courage and integrity with which community members come with their pleas and with their concerns. There was a time when I used to get frustrated because I thought people were almost mean as they came up. And I just don't experience that from our community. They can't come up in deep, deep pain and always come with love and respect. So I'm hurting like we all are, but I'm also, man, there's no place else I'd rather be than associated with our school district. I feel like the Winston Churchill quote, like democracy's the worst thing except for everything else. I feel like our budget process is the worst budget process and going to produce the worst budget except for everything else that we could produce. One point that is interesting now, like a little into the weeds, but I'm just intrigued. I've always understood 87 to 90% of monies being spent towards payroll as a kind of norm, and we've hovered at 87 and 88%. And as we've cut away from making cuts that were not personnel cuts, that of course by percentage is potentially raising our payroll percentage to, you're saying 89.9%. But in the presentation, you mentioned going to 82%, which I just hadn't heard of. I can understand reasons to do that from a long-term governance standpoint. If you get payroll to 82, 83%, you actually have more accordion room for moments of budget cuts. I don't have a finance degree, so you're gonna have to help me. This is just like what strikes me as the case. You have more of an accordion so that when there's another bad ledge session, or when something happens, or when something goes wrong, you have places to cut other than staff. So there's a piece of me that from a governance standpoint says, okay, this is good, long-term. On the other hand, getting to 82% scares me to death, because now I'm saying, well, how do you get to 82% except for decimating fine arts and libraries and all the things that have our kids and families investing in us? So can you help me understand how you got to this, what to me, my reading, and I'm not deeply read in finance, but that's pretty revolutionary. I haven't heard of that before. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll start and then have Ms. Katrina Montgomery maybe reinforce. I think what we're talking about here is a difference between what has been historically the percentage for school districts and what is best practice. Those are two different things. And I think you're right, 86, 87, 88% is what most districts have been operating at. As you get to 90, you get very, very tight. But like any organization, private or public, there's a balance between administrative costs, there's a balance between other direct costs, payroll costs, and based on, I guess, given where we are and how the state funds, it appears, based on what we're hearing from consultants, what's been kind of reinforced by people that this board has seen as, subject matter experts, that if we can get to the range of 81 to 83%, you'll be able to navigate the challenges or variances that you're going to get year over year because of how the state funds public education. I think that is probably going to be different based on how each school district manages their contracts, how each district, just chooses to operate. I think I had a conversation with President Boswell not too long ago about, is maybe AISD is just going to be an 84% school district, right? And that's who we are. But it better be a balanced school district if that's the case. And that means that you're going to operate central very, very lean, which means there are other things that we're not going to do. But what I was trying to make the point when we're having the conversation, first, make sure that your revenue less recapture, those funds can pay for all your fixed costs. Once you do that, then over time, move towards a place where you're not over-reliant, or have a disproportionate percent of your total operating budget be payroll, because then it limits your ability to navigate these difficult conversations. So that's our goal. It's not something that's going to be achieved immediately, because I think that you're totally right. The disruption is significant, but I think it's a difference between what people have been doing versus what is best practice. If that's helpful. It's kind of like those rules of thumb. You hear people say like your mortgage shouldn't be greater than a certain percent of your total, gross revenue or net income, and like your car shouldn't be this. It is what you're seeing is not what it is. It's what it should be. So,
I'd like to add something to that. Trustee Foster, you said, I believe in the May 21st meeting, I thought it was very interesting. You said we're in the period of contracting, right? That's where we are. But when we do this and we get to where we need to get, we're building our fund balance. So all of those things that we feel when we talk about our morals and our values, all those things, we can slowly start to build them up. But we can't do them both at the same time. So if we're in the period now of contracting, we get our payroll in line, then we're contributing to our fund balance. And as our fund balance grows, that then gives us the ability to start doing some more of the things that we feel are important or unique to Austin ISD. But right now, we're in the period of where we have to contract.
Well, my concern, because I only said contraction, I said permanent contraction. My concern is that we are in a moment of permanent contraction. So if you go to school district, Baltimore, New Orleans, you can go to all these cities where over the years they have lost students to never get them back. This has to do with like how we vote at the state level, but I do wrestle with, and just like Trustee Singh pulling up the transportation piece, saying our community needs to know, I think we're in a moment where our community needs to understand that we are at in my opinion, we are at a moment of like a sea change where there's not necessarily a path back from the contraction. I don't see the path back yet. Maybe boom times will come, but I don't see boom times coming until there is a turnover in the ideological drivers of the state. And that is a reckoning. So I sort of again ask, but for no more answering, but I again ask a permanent contraction that reduces payroll to 82%, that we would want that to be done without a cost to the quality of programming unless we are clear with Austinites that that's what's coming, that it is a permanent shrinking, that if you want these things, you're gonna have, like, they ain't gonna happen here. That's kind of where we are from a political economic standpoint. We're messing around with the very real reality of staff members saying, will I have a job? And so it's hard to get big picture on this. But the big picture above that is these jobs never being present again. And that troubles me. That troubles me greatly. That troubles me greatly. So, but again, thank you all for the work. From the bottom of my heart, all of our trustees, our community, and administration. I just see you doing the work, and we're not even there yet. Lastly, offline, I have been encouraged from some quarters that there should be more immediate consensus from the board, and that board shouldn't push this way or board shouldn't push that way, and I disagree. We are 9 people representing 1 million people, and I think it is perfectly good and acceptable and right that we have a range of opinions on the board, and that I might agree with this and I might not agree with that, but I respect and appreciate the absolute range of perspective that we have, and I think it's something that's going to make our budget sharper. These tough questions are good, and they're hard, but they're good, and so I appreciate my colleagues.
Thank you. Anything? Okay. Thank you all to my colleagues for the conversation. Thank you to our staff for all the work. Just want to add a few things. Thank you to our community for leaning in with us and being so well-informed and caring so deeply. And I know the pain and the worry and the fight for what you do for your students and the fight for the work that we all know is so important comes from a place of valuing our public schools and a real place of love. And thank you for that. And I know to the staff that's working to identify these cuts, and it's been a slow process, and we've devoted a whole lot of time to that, and I appreciate you, Superintendent Segura, asking us to come back and really get into the weeds with you as a board and as a community, because I think the harder it is, the more transparency we need and the better understanding. And you have, I will give you credit again and again for going line by line and really building it back up from the bottom. And I know that has just been an immense lift, and that is not a value for this year. That is a value going forward of something that has really been cleaned up, like a budget that's much more clean than it was, that there were things in the wrong buckets. There were things. So thank you for all of that. And I think to everyone who has said we're not going to find the savings we need in the small things add up to big things, and I appreciate the work that's been done. Also do agree that these cuts are going to hurt. I mean, we're so far past. We've been making cuts that have hurt for years, and these are hurting in a new way. And I just want to tell everyone who is going to see something they love cut, it's not that we don't value what we're cutting. We value all of it. It all matters, right? And we saw kids graduating this weekend and, last week, and heard speeches about, all the different things that our students love and all the different ways they're taking the experiences they've gotten and taking it into the world with them. And we saw beautiful orchestra performances and heard amazing choirs and, saw students with associate's degrees and certifications and college prep and athletes being celebrated, all of it. And I think our goal in all of this, and I know the work has been to protect as much as we can, even though it may have to look different for a while. And I really feel that work. And we're going to have to make decisions that are really, really painful. I appreciate the conversation about making sure we're not cutting things that are going to cost us more than they save us. And I think that's a fuzzy calculus. I appreciate, I know one of our ethics has been, as Trustee Kaufman said, understanding where we spend a little to get a lot, and really having an understanding of that. I have a question that I'll take offline about PTEC changing because I thought that got us extra money. I trust that you've calculated. I just want to understand. I would love to know if any other sports are being cut and we wouldn't have to lose many kids who have been in water polo and are counting on that for a path to a college scholarship for something. We wouldn't have to lose many kids to erode those savings. I'd love to just understand that. I'd love to understand where campus level cuts are impacting those pipelines. I think there's a real equity issue if you lose something like choir at one middle school and not at another that feed into the same high school, or band or something. Those students from the campus that lost it never catch up, right? Can never feel successful in high school. I'd like to understand how we're protecting those pipelines, as someone had talked about. Thank you for the Enroll Austin proposal and family-friendly software. That's a happy cut. That's a good cut. So thank you for that, to have software that works better for our families. Really thank you for the administrative cost ratio update. I appreciate you running that calculation. 0.855 is what TEA says is the ceiling, and if we go above that, we get docked points on our first rating. And we are, it looks like you are pulling us back into gamut with, somewhere in the middle of the other big districts in Texas. And I think that's a concrete thing we can look at to see that works. So thank you for the update on that and the work that's helping us get there. And I know those are not easy cuts either. I have a couple of things. I want to, as we look forward and look ahead to next year, really want to understand our special education spending and what we have been spending to get out of the agreed order, what we're spending that is absolutely necessary to give students the services they need, and what we might be able to shift. And I don't have the tools to know that, but I know our CFAC, our special education department, our campuses might have. We are spending a quarter. Last year, we spent a quarter of our budget went to special education services. Our spending per student was twice as high as the state average, more than twice as high as the state average per student. I assume the per state average, the statewide average, is probably too low. But if we were at the state average, we would have $100 million different. And I don't want to shortchange what we owe our students who need the most, who need those services. But I also want to be sure we're spending that money wisely and well, as we're spending everything wisely and well. And I know there are maintenance of effort issues and lots of things, but I hope in the year ahead we can do some thoughtful work to see if 25% of our budget is what we have to do it right, or if that is an artifact of climbing out of the hole we were digging out of, and if there's some balance. So I'd love to understand what that percentage is going to be for the budget that's being proposed. I know that doesn't show up in the short list of lines. And then I would love a plan to answer the questions we need to ask, so we can decide if that's a steady state of our budget, or if there are savings to be found without harming our students. So I think that's an important question to ask. And I know we have the Stetson report. I know there are lots of ways. I don't have those answers. But when I see 25% of our budget, and it's so out of gamut with other things, and we're making so many other cuts that are also impacting our students who receive special education services, I feel like we need to understand that. And I know that's not a question to answer today, but I hope we can talk about that going forward. I also want to make sure my colleagues, I know we've talked about it, some of us, but that our public knows as well. We've been working collaboratively with the administration on one of our jobs as a board is to adopt a budget calendar. And we've been working with the administration to create a new calendar to adopt that we'll be able to preview at our next meeting, at our information session, that does a couple of things. One, it backs this work up. So we're having these hard conversations sooner so that we're not dropping news on people on the last day of school. We're not, in this position again. The cuts don't get any harder, making them later. They just get less humane. And so we're going to back this work up. That's going to be baked into a calendar, and we're also going to be keeping a tighter watch together on projected spending versus actual spending. Just like when your budget at home is tight, you have to watch it more closely. We're going to bake in a short presentation every month. We can consider adopting a scorecard constraint about it to make sure we're looking at projected versus actuals month to month, making sure we're on track to stick to the budget we've adopted. We're going to look at whether the assumptions we're making about the property values, the final property values that we're making budget assumptions are on or off, and we're going to talk about that in August as soon as, those are certified in July. We're going to talk about that right away in August so we know and we're transparent with ourselves and our community. We're going to talk about whether our enrollment projections were accurate and whether our attendance projection is accurate. So we know our weighted average daily attendance, so we're looking at it all along the way. And I think just as we're talking about the budget earlier next year, that will also help us understand how we're sticking with the budget we have to the best degree we can. So I just want people to know to watch for that. And then I have some questions about benefits, whether we're considering the state benefits program or continuing to do other benefits, but I'll ask those offline. And then I think the final thing, we're hearing a lot of just rumor, honestly, that, campus level, we're hearing from so many people worried about the things they love. And, when we hear about fine arts, is it changing or is it going away? When we hear about a band program at a middle school, are we dropping it or are we changing it? And those are two different things. And I hope that at some point when we've adopted the budget, principals can reach out to their communities and kind of share that campus level, what's changing and what's not. Because people don't interact with our district at the budget level. People interact with their district at the campus level, the program level, the classroom level. And I think just helping each community member understand what's changing and what's not, I think would be extremely helpful. So thank you for all of that. Is there anything else you need from us?
No, I think that was well said. I think the modified budget calendar is going to be very important. I just want to make sure that we commit whenever we approve it to the milestones, because having more time is valuable because it gives families and our staff time to plan. But we often, as an organization, push things back. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that happen in my 8 years here. So I think if we're going to be clear about we're going to approve assumptions at this point, if there are cost reductions, we're going to take them at this point. There's complete agreement that that's what we're going to do. Because I think sometimes if it's a hard conversation, we'll delay a month or a couple weeks, and that creates compression. So, no, I'm looking forward to that. I think we should back it up quite a bit, and I think that's why I included it in the presentation, because it's something I'm 1,000% supportive of.
Yeah, and I think part of committing to the milestones is having a shared understanding of how we arrive at those decisions together, what community engagement looks like, all of those things. So I think that'll be a conversation we'll want to have as we talk about that. And then I think the other thing is, as we make these cuts that I think are going to impact people in ways that no one is wanting, I hope as we go into next year, we can lean into our campuses to ask our staff who are closest to our students what we can take off their plates, what we can do to help mitigate some of this. If we find that we have, a little more funding to play with than we thought because we have higher enrollment, because I don't know, what it looks like, we had talked about TAs instead of, who could lean into being subs. We had talked about ARD facilitators that can help reduce some of that planning burden. Like what would benefit our campuses most, including things that don't have a cost, but that we can take things off people's plates. So I think they're just questions about, as we're asking people to do harder things, how can we make it a little less hard? So thank you for that. And thank you for everyone who's engaging with us. I know it's hard and emotional, and we're going to get to the best hard decisions together. So thank you all, and thank you everyone for the work. Okay, we will now recess our open meeting at 10:59 p.m. and move to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, 551.076, 551.0821, and 551.071. When we finish with the executive session, we will briefly return to the open session to formally adjourn the meeting. The adjournment will be recorded and included in all replays of tonight's meeting. Thank you for joining us, and have a good evening. We will now reconvene the open meeting at 1:42 a.m. Secretary Foster, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
The meeting is adjourned at 1:42 a.m. Thank you.